The first time the call came through, it wasn't even a clean ring. It cracked into my headset, like broken glass. Not a normal 911 tone. More like someone was trying to scream through a wall of snow. 911, what's your emergency? I said, already reaching for the log sheet. Nothing. Just static. Then a voice pushed through it. Mayo. Breathless. Close to panic. Please? I think I'm trapped. The line cut out. Came back. Cut again. Like something outside was chewing on the signal. I leaned forward, adjusted my headset, looked at the screen. Unknown location. No GPS lock. That alone made my stomach tighten. Out here in the northern grid, almost every call pinpoints within seconds. Not this one. This one was blind. Then the voice returned. Cabin? I'm in the cabin, up near the pines. A long burst of static swallowed the rest. I typed fast. Remote area, mountain region, signal unstable. My partner across the room glanced over. I shook my head slightly. Not sure yet, but something about the call didn't feel right. Not fear exactly. More like the line itself didn't want to carry it. Sir, I said carefully, can you tell me your location? Silence. Then breathing. Heavy. Wet. Like he was pressed too close to the mic. I don't know, he finally said. I was hiking yesterday. I found this cabin. I stayed because of the storm. Another crack of static. Then something strange happened. The background noise changed. Not wind, not snow, something else. A soft, uneven tapping sound, like fingernails dragging across wood. I paused. You're inside the cabin right now? I asked. Yes, he whispered. Tap, tap, tap. The sound came again, but this time closer to the microphone. I felt my throat tighten without reason. Is there anyone else with you? I asked, a pause too long to be natural. Then, no, but he didn't sound sure. Another burst of static swallowed half the line, and then something happened that I still can't fully explain. For half a second, I heard a second voice under his, not speaking, breathing, but not like a person standing near him, like someone breathing directly into my headset, right into my ear. I pulled back instinctively. My chair rolled slightly. My partner noticed now. You good? I didn't answer, because the man on the line suddenly whispered something different. I didn't leave the door open. That was the first open loop in my mind. If he didn't leave the door open, then what was making that sound inside the cabin? The tapping increased, slow at first, then uneven, like something trying to learn rhythm. I checked the map again. Still nothing. No ping. No tower. No triangulation. Just empty space near the northern pine ridge. A dead zone. But there shouldn't be a dead zone that big. Sir, I said, keeping my voice steady. Listen to me carefully. I need you to check the door. Lock yourself in a room if you can. A laugh came through the static. Not his voice. I froze. It was softer, almost curious. Like someone listening from just behind him had found something amusing. The caller didn't react to it. Or maybe he didn't hear it. Ma'am, he said suddenly, voice shaking harder now. The trees outside, they're too close. That made no sense. Trees don't move. But his tone said he believed it. Then he added something worse. They weren't this close yesterday. A cold shift ran through me. I glanced at the timestamp. Night had fully settled there hours ago. No patrol units nearby. No weather stations reporting anything unusual. And yet I could almost picture it. A small cabin, surrounded by black pine trunks. Too many of them. Too close. The tapping stopped. Complete silence filled the line. That was worse. Silence in a 911 call is never good. Sir, I called. No answer. Just faint breathing again. But now it was irregular. Like he was watching something move around him. Slowly. Circling. Then a new sound. Scrape. Metal on wood. From outside the cabin. The caller gasped. I didn't put anything outside the door, he whispered. That was the second open loop. Because if nothing was outside, what was scraping the wood? My fingers hovered over the dispatch button. But before I could escalate, the line flickered violently. a spike of static, and then very clearly, something else spoke. Not the caller, not the breathing, a third presence. Open it. My headset hissed so loud I thought it would break. I pulled it slightly away from my ear. My partner stood up now. What's going on? I didn't answer again, because the caller suddenly started whispering too, but not to me, to whatever was outside. I didn't see you, he said. A pause. Then he added, softer. You weren't there before. The scraping stopped. Everything went still for maybe 3 seconds. That kind of silence always feels staged, like the world is holding its breath. Then the door handle rattled. Hard. Once. Twice. The caller made a noise, half gasp, half choke. And in that exact moment, the signal dropped to almost nothing. His voice became fragmented. I think it's... Static swallowed him. Then came something I wasn't supposed to hear. A soft impact. Like something pressing its weight against wood. Not breaking in. Not forcing. Just leaning. Testing. The line stabilized for one last moment. And I heard him clearly again. But his voice was different now. Not panicked. Not confused. Just empty. They learned the shape of the house, he said. Then the static surged again. And something dragged across the microphone. Slow. Deliberate. Like it was moving closer to where he was holding the phone. My hand tightened on the desk. I should have cut the call. I should have escalated. But something about it kept me listening. Like if I stopped, I would lose more than just a call. Then, a final burst of clarity. The strongest yet. He whispered, "Don't send anyone here." That was a third open loop. Because people don't usually refuse rescue while dying, unless rescue makes it worse. The line started collapsing after that. Fragments of sound broke apart. The tapping returned, now inside the cabin itself. Not outside, inside, and then the breathing returned too. But it wasn't as anymore. It was too slow, too controlled, like something had finally settled into place. The last thing I heard clearly was a man's voice fading into something almost thoughtful. I think it likes the signal. And then, nothing. The line went dead. But the screen didn't disconnect immediately. It stayed active, still connected to nowhere, still alive in a way it shouldn't be. For about 5 seconds, I just stared at it. Then my headset crackled one last time. Very faint, almost gentle. Not a scream, not static, just breathing, right beside my ear. Like whatever was in that cabin was no longer there. It was closer, and the screen finally blinked out. But before it did, I saw something that made my hand go cold on the desk. A location tag tried to resolve. Just for a fraction of a second. It wasn't a point on the map. It was an area, expanding, centered on the Pine Ridge, spreading outward like something had finally learned how to move through the system itself. And then it vanished. My partner asked again what happened. I didn't answer, because I realized something I still can't explain properly. The line didn't just drop. It stopped responding, like it was still open somewhere, just not to us anymore. And for the rest of that shift, every time the radio clicked, I kept hearing faint static underneath it, like something was still trying to speak. From inside the pines, the roof started speaking before the man did. Not words. Footsteps. Slow, careful, like something was learning how to walk without being seen. I still had the line open from the first call, or what was left of it. The system showed it as inactive, but the channel wasn't fully closed. It just hung there, like a door half shut. Then it clicked. A new connection forced itself through. Same voice, same man, but this time he wasn't breathing hard. He was whispering like the walls could hear him. "It's back," he said. No greeting, no confirmation, just fear already in motion. I leaned closer to the screen. "Sir, I'm still here," I said. A pause, then the sound of him swallowing. "I didn't sleep," he said. "I tried, but it keeps walking above me." The line crackled, and then I heard it too. Footsteps, not from my headset, from a recording feed itself. Slow, measured, circling. I felt my stomach tighten. "Above you?" I asked carefully. "On the roof?" "Yes," he whispered, "but it doesn't sound like snow falling." It sounds heavy. A gust of static cut through his words. Then silence. For a moment, I thought the call had dropped again. But then I noticed something strange on the audio meter. It wasn't flat. There was still movement. Still sound. Just very faint. Like someone walking far away. But perfectly inside the microphone range. The man suddenly spoke again, faster this time. I checked the door 3 times. I locked it. I checked the windows. Nothing, but it keeps circling. I typed quickly. Location still unknown. Remote mountain zone. Snow conditions heavy. No patrol units nearby. No confirmed structures mapped in that area, except a single abandoned ranger cabin. That detail made my eyes narrow. Abandoned cabins don't usually get calls. Sir, I said, I need you to stay calm. Are you able to see outside? A long pause. Then his voice dropped even lower. The windows, they're too dark, he said. What do you mean too dark? I asked. They don't reflect anything anymore. That sentence didn't make sense at first. Then it did. If there was light inside, there should always be reflection. Unless something was blocking it from the outside, or something was closer than the glass. A sudden thump hit the line. Not loud, but direct, right above him. The man jerked back in his breath, and I heard it again. Footstep, right above his head. Slow, deliberate, like it had stopped to listen. I didn't realize I was gripping the edge of my desk until my knuckles hurt. Is it still on the roof? I asked. Yes, he said quickly. But it's not just standing anymore. A pause. Then, it's moving like it's searching for something. That was the first open loop. Because searching implies intention, not random movement. Something had a goal. Something on a cabin roof in the middle of nowhere. I pulled up satellite data again. The cabin was confirmed. Small structure. 1 floor. Metal roof. Surrounded by dense pine forest. No roads within miles. No recent entries logged. So how was someone there now? And more importantly, why was something walking above him like it belonged there? The footsteps stopped suddenly. The silence that followed felt heavier than the sound. The man whispered, "It's listening now." Listening to what? I asked, to me thinking. That made my skin go cold, because that wasn't fear. That was paranoia turning into belief. Or worse, something influencing him. A soft scrape came through the mic. Then another, like nails dragging gently across metal roofing. Not fast, not aggressive, curious. The man's breathing got shallow. I didn't make any noise, he said. I didn't move, but it still found me. Another pause, then the footsteps resumed. But this time, they were closer, not on the roof anymore. More like right at the edge, where roof meets wall. I heard something shift, like weight transferring downward. The man suddenly spoke louder. No, don't. A sharp cut of static. Then his voice broke. It's tried to come down the walls. I froze. That shouldn't be possible. Footsteps don't move vertically like that unless something is climbing. But there was no ladder. No branches close enough. No exterior structure. Just with walls and snow. Sir, listen to me, I said quickly, trying to stabilize him. Stay away from the corners. Stay in the center of the room. A bitter laugh came through, but it wasn't humor. It was disbelief. I am in the center, he said. There is no safe place in here. Then, a new sound, different from before. Not footsteps, scraping, like something sliding slowly down the outer wall. Long, controlled, as if it was measuring the height of the cabin. The man went silent, not even breathing now, just listening. And I heard it too, because the mic picked up something impossible. A second set of footsteps, inside the cabin, but faint, delayed, like a reflection of the first ones. I checked the system feed. No breach alert, no motion detection inside, but the audio said otherwise. The man whispered, "It's inside the walls." That was the second open loop, because walls don't have space for footsteps, unless something is not walking on them. But between them, the scraping stopped. A long silence followed, then a soft knock, from inside the cabin, not the roof, not outside, inside the structure itself. The man reacted instantly. A sharp inhale, then a crash of movement. He must have backed into something. Wood creaked. A chair, maybe. Don't move, I said instinctively, even though I knew it was useless. I didn't touch anything, he whispered. I swear I didn't. Knock. Again. Closer this time. The kind of sound that doesn't belong in empty space. The kind that comes from intention. I felt my throat tighten, because now it wasn't just a call anymore. It was a location reacting in real time, like something was learning the boundaries of the room. The man's voice cracked. It's not outside anymore, he said. And then he corrected himself. It never was. That hit differently. Like realization forming under pressure. Like he was starting to understand something he didn't want to understand. The footsteps resumed. But now they were everywhere. Roof, walls, floor. Not all at once. In sequence. Like something was mapping the structure from the inside out. The system flickered again. Signal strength dropping. Then returning. Then dropping again. My partner stepped closer behind me now. We should send a unit, he said quietly. I didn't answer right away, because the map still showed nothing. No access roads. No clearance routes. Just dense forest and static interference. Zones expanding slowly outward. The man suddenly spoke again, softer. I saw it once, he said. That was the third open loop. Because until now it was only sound. Now it had shape. What did you see? I asked carefully. A long pause. Then, not outside, he said. On the ceiling. My eyes narrowed. You saw it inside the cabin? No, he whispered. I saw where it stopped being wood. That sentence didn't make sense. Until I imagined it. A ceiling. Not behaving like a ceiling anymore. Something pressing against it from above and from within. The footsteps stopped again. Everything went still. Too still. Like the cabin itself had stopped breathing. Then the man whispered something I almost missed. It knows I'm looking at it. A chill ran through me. Because that meant awareness. Reciprocity. Something that reacts to observation. A soft creak came through the mic. Then a slow shift. Like something adjusting its weight directly above him. The man spoke one last time. I think it wants me to open the roof. The line surged with static. And for a split second, I heard something else behind his voice. Not words. Just presence. Close. Then the connection snapped. Dead silence. But this time, the system didn't mark it inactive. It stayed live. Just empty. Like something was still holding the line open. My screen flickered once. And for a fraction of a second, the location tag tried to resolve again. Not a point. Not a coordinate. Just a spreading circle. Wider than before. Covering the pine ridge completely. Then it stopped and disappeared. My partner exhaled slowly. We lost him. I didn't answer immediately because I wasn't sure. The line was gone, but the feeling wasn't. And as I sat there staring at the dead feed, I noticed something I couldn't ignore. A faint tapping sound still lingered in the audio buffer. Slow, above, circling, even after call ended. Like something hadn't stopped walking. It had just stopped speaking. The breathing wasn't as anymore. That was the first thing I noticed. Not the silence. Not the static. The breathing. Slow. Too close, like someone standing right behind the microphone. But I was still on the line with the cabin. Or what was left of it. The system showed open channel. No location. No stable signal. Just a live feed that shouldn't have been alive anymore. And then the man spoke again. But his voice didn't feel alone. I think it's still here, he whispered. I leaned in without thinking. Sir, I need you to tell me exactly what you're hearing. I said. A pause. Then the sound of fabric shifting. Like he was turning his head very slowly. I hear it breathing, he said. And right after that sentence, I heard it too. Not through him. Not through the call. Directly in my headset. A second breath. Right on top of mine. I froze. My fingers stopped moving. For half a second, I forgot I was in a control room. It felt like I was in that cabin. Then the dispatcher across the room looked up at me. What was that? She asked. I didn't answer, because the line changed again. The man wasn't speaking clearly anymore. just fragments. It's close. Too close. Don't listen to it. Then a soft sound came through. Not a knock this time. A whisper, not words at first. Just airflow, like something learning how to shape sound using breath alone. And then, a voice formed inside it. Not the man's. Not mine. A third presence. You're still listening. My stomach dropped, because it wasn't coming from the cabin anymore. It felt like it was inside the system, inside the headset, inside the room. The dispatcher stood up, now fully alert. "Are you getting this too?" she asked. I nodded once, slow, because I didn't trust my voice anymore. The line flickered, and for a moment, I saw something on the waveform display. 2 signals, one weak, one layered on top, perfectly aligned, like a shadow copying movement in real time. The man suddenly spoke again, but his tone had shifted. Less fear, more confusion. "I didn't say anything," he whispered. That was the first open loop, because if he didn't speak, then who did? A long silence followed, but it wasn't empty. The breathing filled it, slow, measuring, almost patient. Then the dispatcher leaned closer to me. "I can hear it," she said quietly. I turned toward her. "What do you mean you can hear it?" She pointed at my headset. "No," she said, "not yours. The room." That was when I realized something I hadn't noticed before. The ventilation system. It had gone quiet. No hum, no airflow, just stillness, like the building itself had stopped breathing to listen. The man on the line suddenly gasped. A sharp sound, like he had stepped back too fast. "I see it now," he said. My grip tightened. "Sir, what do you see?" I asked. A pause. Then, "It's not on the roof anymore." The second open loop, because if it wasn't above him, then where was it? The breathing on the line shifted. Closer, heavier, like something had moved nearer to the microphone. The dispatcher whispered, "Check the signal logs." I did, and that's when my screen showed something I didn't understand. The call timestamp was wrong. Not by minutes, by hours. It showed activity before the call ever started, as if the line had been opened earlier without us knowing. My throat tightened. "That's not possible," I said under my breath. But the breathing answered, "It's been open longer than you think." The voice was calm now, not threatening, just aware, like it had been waiting for me to notice. The dispatcher stepped back slightly. "Who is that?" she asked. I didn't know how to answer, because the system didn't show a second caller. No inbound echo, no recording artifact, just one line, and something writing inside it. The man suddenly spoke again, his voice breaking. "I didn't let it in," he said. "I swear I didn't." That was a third open loop, because letting something in assumes choice. But choice requires understanding what you're dealing with, and he didn't understand. Neither did we. A sudden metallic scrape came through the line, long, slow, like something dragging itself across wood again. But now it was clearer. Not outside, not above, inside the cabin walls. The dispatcher leaned closer again, voice tight. "We should cut it," she said. I hesitated, because something was wrong with that idea. The moment we cut it, we might lose the only connection to whatever was happening. And worse, it might not be gone. It might just stop being heard. The breathing returned, louder now, very close. And then the man whispered something that didn't feel like panic anymore. It felt like realization. "It's using my silence," he said. A chill ran through me. "Explain," I said quickly, but he didn't. Instead, the line filled with movement, soft shifting, like something stepping carefully inside a small room. The dispatcher suddenly grabbed my arm. "Look at the waveform," she said. I did, and my stomach dropped again. The second signal wasn't just layered anymore. It was shaping itself, like it was learning structure from his voice. The man spoke again, but now his words came slower. He was losing control of rhythm. "I think it copies what I think when I don't speak." That was the fourth open loop, because thought shouldn't transmit, but silence can still carry pattern. The breathing shifted again, and this time it matched his perfectly. I felt my skin go cold. because now there were two breaths. One from him, one from something imitating him. The dispatcher whispered, "That's not normal interference." No, it wasn't interference. It was synchronization. The man suddenly went quiet, and the breathing filled the space completely. Then, a soft duplication happened. His voice came back through the line, but slightly delayed. "I think it's inside now." Then again, same sentence, but closer. "I think it's inside now." A third time, almost overlapping his own breath, like the system was replaying him in real time. The dispatcher backed away from the console. "I can't tell which one is him," she said. Neither could I, because the signal was collapsing into one voice, one breath, one presence. And then the original voice broke through. Sharp, clear, final. "Don't listen when it breathes like you." The line snapped. Everything went dead. Silence hit the room, so hard it felt physical. No static, no hum, just empty air. The dispatcher looked at me. "Is it over?" she asked. I didn't answer immediately, because the system still showed something. The call log didn't close. It stayed open, frozen at the last second, and under it, a faint waveform still moved, barely visible, like something was still breathing, but no longer using the line. I reached for the disconnect manually. My finger hovered, then stopped, because for a split second, I heard it again, not in the headset, not on the system. Behind me, a slow inhale, matching mine, and in that exact moment, I realized something I didn't want to understand. The call didn't end. It just learned where we were, and as I slowly turned my head toward the empty room behind me, the monitor flickered once, and showed a second active line, already open, already breathing. The cabin was empty when we arrived, but the phone was still breathing. That's the first thing I saw through the frost-covered windshield of the rescue vehicle. A small wooden structure buried deep in snow, surrounded by pine trees, standing too still, like they were watching us instead of the other way around. No footprints leading in, no footprints leading out. Just smooth snow, like no one had ever been there. But the call, I still remember the call. It didn't sound empty. It sounded full. Too full. We stepped out of the vehicle, boots sinking into frozen ground. The cold hit my face like a warning. The kind of cold that makes sound feel far away. My partner looked at me. "No signs of movement," he said. I nodded, but my eyes stayed locked on the cabin, because something was wrong with the silence. It wasn't normal winter silence. It was expectant, like the air was waiting for us to say something first. We moved closer. The wood of the cabin looked old, but untouched. No damage, no forced entry. Just a simple structure lost in the forest like it had always been there. The door was slightly open, just a few inches. Not enough to feel accidental, not enough to feel forced, enough to feel intentional. My hand went instinctively toward my radio, but before I could speak, a sound came from inside. Static, soft, like a radio left on in another room. My stomach tightened, because I knew that sound. That wasn't external equipment. That was a live line. The same line, the 911 channel. Still open, still active. We pushed the door slowly. It creaked like it had been waiting for us. Inside was warm. Too warm. That was the first wrong thing. A cabin in these conditions should have been freezing. Ice on the windows. Breath in the air. But here, nothing. Just stillness. And a faint glow from a phone sitting on a small wooden table. Off the hook. Receiver hanging slightly to the side. Still connected. Still alive. The static came from it. My partner stepped forward first, then stopped. "What the hell?" he whispered. I followed his gaze. The phone line wasn't just open. It was active in a way it shouldn't have been. No power source. No network signal. But sound was still coming through. Not loud. Not clear. Just breathing. I felt my throat tighten, because it wasn't random noise. It had rhythm. Human rhythm. Slow inhale. Slow exhale. Like someone standing right next to the mic. But there was no one here. The cabin was empty. I forced myself to speak into the radio. "This is Unit 4. We've reached the location. Cabin is empty. No subject found. A pause. Then my partner said quietly, "Check the room." We split, slowly, carefully. Every step made the wooden floor groan under us. One room, empty. Second room, empty. Kitchen, empty. But the feeling never changed, like we were being followed without anything moving. And the breathing on the phone kept going, steady, unbothered, like it didn't care that no one was here to hear it anymore. I returned to the main room. My partner was already standing near the table, staring at the phone. "Is it recording?" he asked. I leaned closer. The display was off. No power. But the audio was still live, still open, still connected. Then I noticed something else. The receiver cord wasn't plugged into anything. It was just hanging, disconnected from the wall jack. I froze. "That's impossible," I said. My partner didn't respond, because the breathing changed. It got closer, not louder, closer, like something had leaned in toward us from the other side of the call. A soft whisper followed, not words at first, just airflow shaping sound. Then, "You came late." My blood went cold. My partner stepped back slightly. "Who said that?" he asked. No answer came from the room. Only the phone, still off the hook, still speaking without power. "You always come after it learns." That was the first open loop. Because what learns in silence? And what does it learn from? The forest outside creaked slightly, wind shifting. But inside the cabin, nothing moved. Nothing at all. And yet the breathing continued, now slower, more deliberate, like it was listening to our reactions. My radio crackled suddenly. "Dispatch." But the voice didn't sound right. It was layered, 2 tones overlapping slightly. "Report status," it said. I hesitated, because I wasn't sure if that was still our dispatch, or something else using the frequency. I answered anyway. "Cabin is empty. No subject. Phone line still active with unknown audio source." A pause. Then the dispatcher voice responded. "Did you check the walls?" My partner and I exchanged a look. Walls. Why walls? Before I could respond, the phone on the table gave a soft click, like something shifting on the other end of the line. Then, a new sound. Footsteps. Slow. Inside the audio feed. But not on the phone anymore. Inside the cabin. We both froze. My partner whispered, "That's impossible." I wanted to agree, but the footsteps didn't care about impossible. They circled once, then stopped, right behind us. We turned instantly. Nothing. Empty room. But the temperature dropped slightly. Just enough to feel it in the skin. The phone spoke again. "You're standing where it learned your shape." That was the second open loop. Because learning a shape requires observation. And observation requires presence. But we were alone. We had to be. My partner raised his flashlight slowly. It swept across the walls. Wooden panels. Old nails. Dust. Nothing else. But the breathing on the phone changed again. Now it matched ours. Perfectly. In sync. I exhaled slowly, and the phone exhaled with me. My partner noticed it too. He backed away from the table. "This isn't a call," he said quietly. "It's copying us." That word hit differently. Copying. Not communicating. Not transmitting. Copying. The phone line crackled again. And then I heard my own voice. Not me speaking now, but me earlier, from the recording. "We've reached the location." It repeated my words perfectly, delayed by a few seconds. Then again, cabins, empty, but the words were wrong now, slightly altered. Cabins were never empty. That was the third open loop, because if it wasn't empty before, then what were we walking inside? The room suddenly felt smaller, like the walls had shifted inward while we weren't looking. My partner raised his weapon slightly, not aiming at anything specific, just reacting. The phone vibrated once on the table, even without power, even without connection. Then it whispered again, soft, almost gentle. "You're inside it now." A silence followed, heavy, complete, the kind of silence that feels like it is weight. Then a second phone ring, not from the table, from somewhere deeper in the cabin. We both turned slowly. The sound came from the next room. Kitchen, but we had already cleared it. We moved carefully. Step by step, the ringing continued. Slow, patient, like it knew we would come. When we reached the kitchen doorway, I stopped, because I saw it. Another phone. Same model, same position. On the counter, receiver already off the hook. Breathing coming through it. My partner whispered, "There's no second line installed here." I knew that. There shouldn't be. But it was there anyway. The first phone behind us spoke again. Now you hear from both sides. That was the fourth open loop. Because hearing from both sides means containment. And containment means we were no longer outside anything. We were inside it. The two phones synchronized, breathing together. One behind us, one in front of us, like a circle closing. My partner stepped back slightly. "I don't like this," he said. Neither did I. But leaving didn't feel possible anymore. Because the sound wasn't coming from devices now. It was coming from the structure itself. The wood, the air, the silence between breaths. The walls creaked softly, almost like something adjusting its posture. And then the first phone spoke one last time. Not loud, not urgent, just certain. It kept the cabin so to keep you. The line went dead. Both phones, both feeds, everything. Silence returned instantly, but it didn't feel like relief. It felt like a tension shifting away. My partner looked at me. "We should go," he said. I nodded. We turned toward the door, but stopped immediately, because the snow outside was no longer untouched. There were footprints now, fresh, leading in from the forest, slow, deliberate, and stopping right at the threshold, like something had just arrived. My radio crackled once more. Just once. A final fragment of sound. Not dispatch, not static, just a breath, very close. And then a voice that sounded almost curious said, "So this is what you call empty?" The transmission ended, but the footprints outside didn't move. And neither did we, because now we understood something we didn't want to understand. The cabin was never empty. It was just waiting for the right voices to arrive. The road wasn't supposed to exist here. That was the first thought that hit me when the caller spoke. "No cars, no lights, just road and sand," he said. His voice was thin, like the wind was already pulling it apart. I checked the system. No registered highway in that sector. Just a blank stretch of desert grid. Still, the call was live. Barely. "Sir, can you confirm your location?" I asked. A long pause, then a low breath through the mic. "I don't know," he said. "My GPS stopped an hour ago." Everything stopped. Another pause, then something changed in his tone, like he was looking at something now. "Wait." I leaned closer without thinking. "What do you see?" I asked. Silence. Then his voice came back softer. "There's something on the road." That was the first open loop, because something is never just something. It always becomes more. The radio hissed in the background, but underneath it, I heard wind, strong desert wind, then a faint shuffle, like footsteps on dry sand. I checked the feed again. Still no triangulation, no backup signal, just raw audio from nowhere. "Describe it," I said. His breathing got heavier. "I can't," he said. "It's too far, but it's wrong." That word stuck. Wrong. Not scary. Not unknown. Wrong. A pause stretched between us. Then he added quietly, "It looks like a person, but it keeps changing when I look straight at it." That was the second open loop. Because things don't change shape just because you look at them, unless perception is part of the problem. I signaled my partner without speaking. He leaned over, reading the screen. "Dead zone," he muttered. "No coverage out there." But the call kept going. The man suddenly spoke again, faster. "I think it knows I'm here." His voice cracked slightly. I didn't see any cars. No tire marks. Nothing. Just me and the road. A sudden wind burst hit the audio feed. Sharp, dry, then silence again. And in that silence, I heard it, a faint sound, not from him, from the background, like something shifting weight far away. Slow, deliberate, the man whispered. It moved closer. I felt my stomach tighten. Sir, do not approach it, I said quickly. Stay in your vehicle. A short laugh came through, but it wasn't humor. It was disbelief. I didn't move, he said. It moved when I blinked. That made no sense. But fear doesn't need sense to grow. It just needs repetition. The wind returned, and with it, something else. A dragging sound, like fabric brushing sand. But there was no fabric out there. Only desert, empty desert. The man's voice dropped. I can see it better now. A pause. Then, it's closer. That was the third open loop. Because nothing should cross distance without movement being recorded. I checked the map again. Still nothing around him. No roads, no structures, no signals. Just a straight line of highway that didn't officially exist. My partner frowned. This is some kind of interference, he said. But I didn't answer, because interference doesn't explain footsteps. The caller suddenly spoke again, his voice shaking now. It's not walking normally. A pause. Then, it's like it forgets what shape it is every few seconds. A chill ran through me, because that matched something I didn't want to think about. The idea that whatever he was seeing wasn't stable, not physical, not fixed. The audio cracked slightly. Then a new sound came through. Not wind, not sand, a soft alignment, like something correcting itself. Step, pause, shift. Step, pause, shift. But inconsistent, broken rhythm, like it was learning how to exist in motion. The man whispered, I think it's watching me through the road. I blinked. Through the road? I repeated. Yes, he said quickly. Like the ground isn't flat anymore. Like it's... He stopped mid-sentence. Then a long silence. Too long. Sir, I called. Nothing. Then a breath. Right into the mic. But it wasn't his breathing pattern anymore. It was slower, deeper, almost curious. Then the man spoke again. But his voice sounded strained. I think it's standing on both sides of me now. That was the fourth open loop. Because how does something stand on both sides of a single point? Unless space itself is bending perception. The wind died completely in the audio feed. That was worse. Desert silence is never empty. It's just waiting. The man suddenly whispered. It keeps changing when I don't look directly at it. Then he added something that made my grip tighten. But it stops when I stare. That detail mattered, because it implied awareness of observation, something that reacts to attention. The system flickered. For a second, I saw a faint location ping attempt. Then it failed. Then it tried again. Closer. Still unstable. My partner leaned in. We should dispatch a patrol, he said. But I hesitated, because patrol needed coordinates. And we had none. Just a voice trapped in nowhere. The man suddenly spoke louder. I think it's trying to become the road. That sentence didn't land immediately. Then it did, and it stayed. Because roads don't just carry things. They define direction. They define escape. The audio suddenly distorted, like something stepped too close to the microphone. Then, footsteps. Clear, not in the distance now. Right beside him. He gasped, It's here! Then stopped, mid-word. Silence. Then a slow sound, like someone turning their head very slightly. The breathing returned. But it wasn't his anymore. It was too controlled, too close. And then a whisper, not urgent, not aggressive, just certain. You stop moving. That was the fifth open loop. Because stopping movement in the middle of nowhere doesn't make you safe. It makes you visible. The system briefly locked, then stabilized, then showed something it shouldn't have. A moving point on the dead road, but not traveling forward. Circling around his position. Slow, methodical. My stomach tightened. Sir, can you still hear me? I said, no answer. Just that breathing again. Now layered, like more than one presence using the same breath. Then a final sound came through. Very faint, like sand being dragged across glass. And his voice returned for the last time. But it was different, calm, almost understanding. I think it's not outside the road, he said. A pause. Then, it is the road. The line collapsed. Silence. But the system didn't close it. It just held. like something still connected. My partner stared at me. Did we just lose him? I didn't answer, because the screen still showed movement, on a road that shouldn't exist. And for a brief second, I swear I saw the signal widen, like the dead road was no longer just a line on a map, but something spreading outward. And as I reached for the disconnect button, the system updated once more. A second audio feed appeared. Same location, same channel, but already active, already breathing. The first thing I noticed was the silence on the map. Not the desert, not the road, the silence. Because mile marker 88 didn't exist. At least, not anymore. But the voice on the radio kept insisting it did. I'm still here, the driver said. I haven't moved. I think something's following me, but I can't tell if it's behind or beside me. I looked at the coordinates again. The system kept trying to lock onto a highway that refused to appear, like it was being erased in real time. Sir, I said slowly, can you see any signs? Any road markers? A pause. Then his breathing came through sharp. There's one, he said. That was the first open loop. Because if there's a marker, then something officially recognizes a road. And if something recognizes it, it must exist somewhere. The dispatcher beside me leaned in. You get anything stable? She asked. I shook my head. No fixed signal. It keeps drifting. The line crackled. Then the driver spoke again, voice lower now. But the marker is wrong. My fingers paused over keyboard. Wrong how? I asked. A long silence followed. Then it says 88, but it keeps changing when I don't look directly at it. That sentence made the room feel colder. Not because it was impossible, but because it sounded like perception itself was unstable. I checked the archived road data. Nothing. No mile marker 88. No highway extension in that region. But the call was still live. Still breathing. The dispatcher frowned. That sector was decommissioned, she said. Closed after multiple missing persons reports. Years ago, that was the second open loop. Because if it was closed, why was someone still driving on it? The driver suddenly spoke again. I think I passed the same rock twice, he said. A pause, then faster. No, 3 times. But I didn't turn. I leaned closer to the mic. Sir, stay calm. Don't change direction. Just keep the vehicle steady. A short laugh came through. But it wasn't humor. It was panic breaking down into disbelief. I haven't changed direction, he said. The road did. The radio hissed sharply. For a moment, I thought I heard something else underneath it. A second sound, like tires rolling over gravel. But slower. Too slow. Measured. As if something heavier than a car was moving in parallel. The driver suddenly whispered, There's something in my rear view mirror. That was the third open loop. Because rear view mirrors don't show what's not behind you. Unless something is there, just not in the way you expect. Describe it, I said quickly. A pause. Then his voice cracked slightly. I don't know how to describe it, he said. It's like it forgets its shape every time I blink. I felt my stomach tighten. Because that matched something from earlier calls. Patterns repeating. Not coincidence. Replication. The dispatcher leaned closer. We should patch this to field units, she said. But I hesitated, because field units needed something stable. And nothing about this was stable. The driver suddenly exhaled sharply. It's closer now. The line spiked. Static surged for half a second. Then, silence. Too clean. Too complete. My hand froze over the radio. Sir, I called. No answer. Then, a faint sound. Like wind brushing against metal. But the car shouldn't have been near anything metallic. Then his voice returned. Different this time. Slower. Heavier. I think I understand now, he said. That tone changed everything. Not fear anymore. Realization. What do you understand? I asked carefully. A long pause. Then, the road isn't moving me. That was the fourth open loop. Because if the road isn't moving the driver, then what is? The system flickered. The coordinates shifted again. Not forward, not backward, sideways, as if the map itself couldn't decide where he was supposed to be. The dispatcher stepped back slightly. This is impossible, she muttered. But the driver kept speaking. Calmer now, almost detached. I stopped checking the mirror, he said. A pause, because it started showing me things I wasn't doing. My throat tightened. Like, what? I asked. Silence. Then, like turning around. That sentence landed heavy, because turning around implies choice, but also implies time. And if the mirror showed something he wasn't doing, then something else was occupying that possibility. The radio hissed again, and for the first time, I heard multiple footsteps. Not just one vehicle, not just his tires, but layered movement, like something was pacing him from both sides of the road. The driver suddenly spoke louder. I see it now, he said. My fingers locked on the console. What do you see? I asked quickly. A pause. Then, it's not behind me anymore. That was the fifth open loop, because if it's not behind him, then where is it positioned in relation to him at all? The system pinged again, this time more stable. A brief coordinate lock appeared, then immediately degraded. But I saw it, a thin line on the map, not a road, a distortion, stretching across empty desert space, like the system was trying to draw something it couldn't fully render. The dispatcher leaned in again. We're losing him, she said, but I wasn't sure we ever had him. The driver's voice softened. I think I've been on this road longer than I remember, he said. Then he paused, and I don't remember starting. That made something cold settle in my chest, because memory gaps in real time don't happen naturally, unless perception is being rewritten. The radio crackled violently, a sudden spike of interference. Then a new sound came through. Not the driver, not static, a second voice. Very faint, very close. You passed the exit already? My head snapped toward the speakers. The dispatcher froze. That wasn't him, she said. No, it wasn't. The driver suddenly spoke again, but his tone had shifted completely. I think I missed something, he said. A pause, then quieter, or something missed me. That was the sixth open loop, because missing something implies divergence, a split in reality. The system suddenly updated. The mile marker 88 label appeared for half a second, then flickered, then changed, back to 88 again, like the road couldn't decide what number it was supposed to carry. The driver suddenly inhaled sharply. It's in front of me now, he said. I leaned forward. Do not approach it, I said quickly. A pause. Then, I'm not moving, he whispered. Another pause. Then, it moved closer when I stopped. That hit differently, because movement shouldn't depend on attention, unless attention is the trigger. The radio hissed again, then silence. But this silence wasn't empty. It felt occupied, like something had finished adjusting itself. The dispatcher whispered, "We need to terminate this." But I didn't move, because the screen was still showing activity, not the driver. Something else. A second position had appeared on the map, parallel, tracking his exact movement, matching him perfectly. The driver suddenly spoke one last time, his voice very calm now. I think I understand the road, he said. A pause. Then, it doesn't end. It just stops noticing you. The line cut, instantly. No static, no fade, just gone. But the system didn't close. It stayed open, like something still using it. The dispatcher looked at me. We lost him? She asked again. I didn't answer immediately, because the map was still active, and the line was still moving, slowly, along mile marker 88, even though no one was driving anymore. And as I stared at that moving point, I realized something I didn't want to understand. The road didn't disappear. It just stopped being part of our world. And whatever was driving on it was still learning how to leave it. His name was gone before the signal even dropped. That was the first thing I noticed. Not silence, not static. Forgetfulness. I think I'm still driving, he said. But there was hesitation now. Not fear. Confusion, like the road inside his head, had started breaking before the real road did. I leaned closer to the console. Sir, can you confirm your name? I asked. A pause. Too long. Then, I don't know why you're asking me that. That was the first open loop. Because people don't forget their name in the middle of a crisis. unless something is rewriting the crisis itself. The dispatcher glanced at me. That's not normal, she said quietly. No, it wasn't. The radio hissed softly, but under it, something felt unstable, like his voice wasn't anchored anymore. Sir, I said again, slower this time, you called emergency services. You reported mile marker 88. Do you remember that? A breath. Then, mile what? My fingers stopped moving. The system showed his signal still active, still driving, still moving along that impossible road. But his memory wasn't matching it anymore. That was the second open loop. Because if he forgot why he called, then what was still driving him forward? The driver suddenly spoke again, but his tone changed. Less urgency, more drifting. I think I pulled over earlier, he said. A pause. I think I got out of the car. I checked the feed instantly. Sir, are you outside your vehicle right now? I asked sharply. Silence. Then a soft sound, like fabric shifting in wind. No, he said finally. I'm inside. I think hit harder than anything else. Because certainty was dissolving in real time. The dispatcher leaned closer. We're losing cognitive stability, she said. I nodded slightly, but my attention stayed locked on the waveform. It wasn't clean anymore. It was fragmenting, like multiple versions of his voice were trying to occupy the same channel. The driver suddenly whispered, Did I already talk to you? That was the third open loop. Because if he doesn't remember speaking, then how many conversations are happening at once? Stay with me, I said quickly. You're on mile marker 88. You're in a desert zone. You called us because something was following you. A long pause. Then, I called you, he asked. A second pause. Then, quieter. Why would I call you from a place I don't remember entering? That question made my stomach tighten, because he wasn't just forgetting details. He was losing continuity, like his timeline had gaps forming inside it. The radio crackled, and for a moment, I heard something underneath his voice. A second rhythm. Not speech, not wind. Something like tires on sand, but not consistent, like it was replaying movement from different positions at once. The driver suddenly spoke faster. I think I stopped once, he said. A pause. I think someone was standing outside my car. My eyes narrowed. Describe them. I said quickly. Silence. Then, I don't remember their face, he said. That was wrong. People usually remember fear before they forget identity. But here, fear was intact. Memory was not. The dispatcher whispered, This is like cognitive erosion. But I wasn't sure it was erosion. It felt more like replacement. The driver suddenly exhaled sharply. Why am I talking to you? He asked. A chill ran through me. That was the fourth open loop. Because now even the purpose of communication was dissolving. Because you're in danger, I said firmly. You reported something abnormal on the road. A pause. Then, road, he repeated slowly. Like the word itself felt unfamiliar. I'm on a road? That sentence shouldn't exist. Not like that. Not mid-journey. The system flickered again. His position on the map wavered. Not forward. Not backward. Sideways. Like the road itself was uncertain where he was supposed to exist. The dispatcher leaned in. We need grounding questions, she said. Anchor him. I nodded. Sir, I said carefully, look at your hands. Are you holding the steering wheel? A pause. Then, I think so, he said. Not yes. Not no. I think so. That repetition made something worse. Because I think was becoming his only stable phrase. The radio hissed louder. And suddenly, a second voice slipped through. Not the driver. Not dispatch. Just a whisper layered under everything. You've been driving longer than you remember. My breath caught. The dispatcher stepped back slightly. Did you hear that? She asked. I nodded slowly. Yes, we both did. But the driver didn't react. That was the strangest part. As if that voice wasn't for him anymore. It was for us. The driver suddenly spoke again. I think I saw a sign earlier, he said. A pause. It said something like, don't continue. That was the fifth open loop. Because warnings on a road that doesn't officially exist shouldn't be readable. What did the sign look like? I asked. Silence. Then, I don't know, he said. I think it changed when I looked at it. My fingers tightened on the console. Patterns again. Perception instability. The same behavior as a shape-changing object from mile marker 88 reports. This wasn't isolated. It was connected. The driver suddenly inhaled sharply. I remember something, he said. For the first time, his voice sharpened. A brief return of clarity. I remember starting the car. I leaned forward instantly. Good. That's good. What happened before you started driving? A pause. Longer this time. Then, I think I was already driving. That contradiction hit hard because it collapsed sequence entirely. Start and continuation had merged. The dispatcher looked at me. This is recursive memory loss, she whispered. But I wasn't convinced it was loss anymore. It felt like compression, like something was reducing his entire experience into fewer and fewer points. The driver suddenly spoke again, but slower now. I think I stopped caring about where I was going, he said. A pause. Because I don't remember there being anywhere to go. That was the moment I felt the structure shift. Because destination implies origin, and origin implies truth. If both were gone, then what remained? The radio suddenly surged with static, a burst of interference. Then, a faint sound of movement outside his car. But now it wasn't behind him. It was around him, encircling. The driver whispered, "Did you hear that?" I answered carefully, "What do you hear?" Silence. Then, "I think the road is speaking again." That line didn't make sense. Until it did. Because earlier, the road wasn't just a place. It was a system, a pattern, something capable of rewriting perception. The dispatcher leaned in urgently. "We need to end the call," she said. But I hesitated because the signal was still active. And now, it was stable again. Too stable. The driver suddenly spoke one last time. But his voice was almost calm. "I don't think I'm lost," he said. A pause. "I think I just haven't arrived yet." That was the final open loop. Because arrival requires a destination that exists outside the journey. The system flickered. His position locked for a second, then expanded outward. Not forward, not backward, outward. Like the road itself was growing around him. The radio clicked. Once, twice, then silence. The driver's voice returned faintly. Very faint, almost peaceful. "I think I understand now," he said. A pause. Then, "The road doesn't end when you leave it." Static rose. The line broke, but the system didn't close. It stayed open, and for a few seconds after the call ended, his last record position kept moving, even though no voice remained, even though no driver should have been there anymore. And as I stared at the map, I realized something I couldn't shake. He didn't lose his memory on the road. The road kept what he forgot, and it was still collecting. The signal didn't drop. It got replaced. That's the part that still makes my skin crawl when I think about it. 1 second. I was staring at the map, watching his position fade along that impossible road. The next second, the audio went dead. Clean. No static. No warning. Just silence. "Line is down," my partner said quietly, but I didn't answer right away. Because something was still wrong on the screen. The system didn't show a disconnect. It showed overlap. A second waveform. Lying under the first one. I leaned closer. "That's not possible," I muttered. The dispatcher frowned. "What are you seeing?" I didn't respond. Because the audio file had changed. Not ended. Changed. I clicked it open again. And that's when I heard it. 2 calls. Stacked on top of each other. The one we just heard. And another one. Older. Faint. But identical in structure. Same voice channel. Same emergency line. But the timestamp. It was wrong. Years wrong. That was the first open loop. Because emergency lines don't echo through time. Not like this. I played it again. The newer call was gone now. Or maybe buried. The older one surfaced instead. A voice came through. Different tone. Calmer, but still urgent. 911, what's your emergency? I heard myself say. I froze. That wasn't me, but it sounded like me. Same cadence, same training tone, but from a different time. The dispatcher stepped closer behind me. "What is that?" she asked. I didn't answer, because the second voice responded. "I think I'm on mile marker 88, the caller said. My stomach dropped. That name again. But this time, it was older, less broken, more certain. That was the second open loop, because mile marker 88 shouldn't have multiple calls across different years, unless it never stopped happening. I checked the file metadata again. The system showed something impossible. Same caller ID, same number, different years. Stacked, like the line had been used again and again without ever truly closing. The dispatcher whispered, "That number, it's flagged in the archive." I looked at her. "Flagged for what?" She hesitated, then said it. Repeated abandoned distress calls. Same highway, same section, different years. A chill ran through me, because repetition isn't coincidence. It's pattern. The audio shifted again. The older call continued. "I don't see any cars," the voice said. "Just road and sand, and something standing far away." My breath slowed, because it was the same description, same structure, same fear, just earlier, before the version we just heard. I leaned closer to the speakers, and I realized something worse. The voice wasn't just similar. It was identical. Same person, same situation, just less broken, like time hadn't finished corrupting him yet. The dispatcher frowned. "This is a playback error," she said quickly, but I knew it wasn't, because playback doesn't simulate real-time response gaps. And this did. The caller in the older recording suddenly paused, then said something that made my hands freeze. "Wait, I think I already called this before." That was the third open loop, because how does someone remember a future call? The room felt tighter, like the air itself was compressing. I adjusted the playback. The older voice continued. "I think I've been here longer than I should be," he said. A pause, then softer, "And I think something is answering me from the road." I stopped breathing for a second, because that matched the later call, the one we just lost. But this version was earlier in the timeline, meaning the pattern wasn't repeating. It was building. The dispatcher leaned in. "This doesn't make sense," she said. "No," I agreed quietly. "It doesn't." The audio flickered again, and suddenly the older voice overlapped with the newer one. Same words, same phrasing, different emotional decay. Two versions of the same moment colliding. "I think it sees me," one said. "I think it sees me," the other repeated, but not in sync, slightly offset, like echoes misaligned in time. I felt something cold settle in my chest, because this wasn't duplication. It was layering. The system was storing versions of the same event and replaying them together. The dispatcher whispered, "We need to shut this down." But I didn't move, because I noticed something else. Between the two voices, there was a third sound, very faint, breathing, not from either recording. Something in between them. That was the fourth open loop. Because if neither timeline contained it, then where was it coming from? I isolated the track, amplified it slightly. The breathing became clearer, slow, measuring, almost aware of being listened to. The dispatcher stepped back slightly. "That's not in the file," she said. "No," I replied. "It's between the files." The older call suddenly broke slightly. Static interference. Then the caller spoke again, but his tone changed, more confused. "Why does it feel like I've said this before?" he asked. That hit harder than anything else, because déjà vu implies memory. But this wasn't memory. It was recursion. The newer call suddenly reappeared beneath it. Just fragments. The same man, but more deteriorated. "I don't think I'm on the road anymore," the newer version whispered. The older version responded unknowingly. "I think I'm on mile marker 88. They overlapped again. Same sentence. Different degradation. The dispatcher covered her mouth slightly. "This is impossible," she said again. But I wasn't listening to her, because I saw something on the waveform display. A third layer forming. Not audio. Structure. Like the system was reconstructing something from both recordings. The breathing grew louder, in both layers, then merged. The caller, both versions, spoke at once. I think something is following me. But the timing was off. Half a second delay between them, creating a ripple effect in the audio itself. I leaned forward, and that's when I realized something I didn't want to understand. The newer call wasn't just a recording. It was a continuation of the older one. But the system had separated them in time, like cutting a film into two scenes and forgetting they were connected. The dispatcher suddenly spoke. What happens if you merge them? I didn't answer, but I thought the same thing. So I did it. I layered both tracks manually. Older call, newer call, aligned them. For a second, nothing happened. Then the audio collapsed inward, like both versions recognized each other. The breathing stopped completely. Then a new voice emerged. Not older, not newer, just unified. I remember now, it said. That was the fifth open loop. Because remembering requires continuity. And continuity requires identity. But identity had just been merged. I stared at the screen. The waveform stabilized. Perfectly flat for a moment, then expanded outward again. Like something had just become aware of itself. The dispatcher whispered, "What did you just do?" I didn't answer immediately, because the audio changed again. The unified voice spoke once more. "Why did you call me twice?" it asked. I froze, because it wasn't talking to the driver anymore. It was talking to us. The system flickered violently. Then the file metadata updated itself. One record, single call, no timestamps, no separation, just one continuous emergency line, stretching backward further than it should. The dispatcher stepped away from the console. "We shouldn't be seeing this," she said. But I was already watching something worse. The map, because mile marker 88 reappeared, not as a location, but as a loop, circular now, not linear. The road wasn't extending anymore. It was folding. The audio whispered again, very softly. "We never lost a signal," it said. A pause. Then we became it. The system cut to silence. No file, no playback, just blank screen. But the speakers didn't fully shut down, because for a few seconds after, the breathing still continued, very faint, right behind me, and when I turned around slowly, the room was empty, except for the monitor, still glowing, still open, and on it, a new incoming call. Same number, already ringing. The first warning came before the call even finished connecting. "Don't send anyone after dark." A man's voice, rough, shaking, then static swallowed him halfway through the sentence. But the line stayed open. That was the first thing that felt wrong, because 911 calls don't stay open when they break. I leaned closer to the monitor. The system showed a live connection. No clear location, just a blinking tag. "Remote region, blizzard active." The dispatcher beside me frowned. "That's North Ridge territory," she said quietly. "There's nothing up there. No service villages. No registered settlements." But the voice came back anyway. "I told you," he said, faster now. "Don't send anyone after dark." That was the first open loop. Because no emergency starts with a warning not to help. I adjusted my headset. "Sir, this is emergency dispatch. You need to explain what's happening." A pause. Then wind. Heavy. Violent. Like the mic itself was outside in the storm. "They came from the road," he said finally. My fingers stopped moving. "What came from the road?" I asked. Silence. Then, "Don't make them come back." That was the second open loop. Because is never just people in a storm. It always becomes something else when fear starts speaking for you. The dispatcher leaned closer. "No GPS lock yet?" she asked. I shook my head. No stable ping. But the voice on the line got clearer, like the storm was stepping aside just enough for him to speak. "I'm inside the village hall," he said. "We locked the doors. But the windows, they're not showing anything anymore." That made no sense. Windows always show something. Even darkness reflects. "Describe the village," I said quickly. A long pause. Then his voice dropped lower. "It wasn't like this before the storm," he said. "There were more houses. I think That was the third open loop. Because memory changing during a crisis means time is already unstable. The dispatcher whispered, "Blizzard interference, maybe?" But I wasn't convinced, because interference doesn't erase architecture. The man suddenly spoke again. "There's someone outside." I leaned forward. "Can you see them?" "No," he said, "but I hear them walking." A soft crunch came through the mic. Snow. Heavy. Slow. But something was wrong with the rhythm. It wasn't random walking. It was circling. I checked the weather feed again. Whiteout conditions confirmed. Zero visibility. No patrol units in the area. And yet, movement was clearly audible. The man whispered, "They're walking around the building again." My chest tightened. "How many?" I asked. Silence. Then, "I don't know," he said. "I think more when I stop counting." That sentence stuck in my head, because counting implies stability, and stability was already gone. The dispatcher stepped closer. "We should escalate this to search and rescue," she said. I nodded slowly, but something about the audio made me hesitate, because the footsteps stopped, completely, and that silence felt heavier than the storm. Then, a knock, soft, on wood, inside the microphone feed. The man didn't respond immediately. Then his voice cracked slightly. "They're at the door now." That was the fourth open loop, because doors in a blizzard shouldn't have, on the other side. I leaned closer. "Do not open it," I said firmly. "Stay away from the entrances." A pause. Then he whispered, "We already did." My stomach dropped. A burst of static cut through the line. Then a second sound appeared. Not wind, not snow, breathing, but not his. Too slow, too calm, like something was standing right next to the mic, listening before speaking. The dispatcher froze. "That's not him," she said. "No, it wasn't." Then the man spoke again, but his tone had changed. Confused now. "I don't remember locking the doors," he said. That was the fifth open loop, because forgetting actions mid-crisis means something is rewriting continuity. I checked the system again. The location tag flickered, then stabilized, then flickered again, like it couldn't decide where the call belonged. The breathing on the line got closer, then stopped, and in that silence, the man whispered something that didn't feel like fear anymore. It felt like realization. "I think the village is moving," he said. I blinked. "What did you say?" I asked. A pause. Then, "It wasn't here before the storm." The dispatcher shook her head slightly. "That's impossible," she said under her breath. But I didn't answer, because the audio changed again. Now I could hear layers, not just inside the hall. Outside, too. Footsteps again. But now they matched the interior sound, like both sides of the building were moving in sync. The man suddenly spoke louder. "They're not standing outside anymore," he said. A pause. "They're standing in the snow where the village used to be." That sentence didn't land right, because it suggested displacement, not arrival. The system flickered, and for a second, I saw something on the map, a cluster of dots. Not roads, not houses, just shapes, too many for a single village. Then they vanished. The dispatcher leaned in. "We're losing clarity," she said. But I wasn't listening, because the man's voice changed again. Slower, calmer, almost empty. "I think they're inside now," he said. That was the sixth open loop, because if they're inside, then what remained outside? A long silence followed. No wind, no footsteps, just breathing. Then the voice came again, but it wasn't his anymore. "You should not have answered the call." My skin went cold. The dispatcher stepped back. "What is that?" she asked. I didn't answer, because the system was no longer showing a single source. It showed multiple inputs, all overlapping, all from the same location. The man's voice came back briefly. "I told them not to send anyone," he said. Then, silence again. The breathing returned. Closer, heavier, like the room itself was filling with it. The dispatcher whispered, "Cut it." But I couldn't move, because something on the screen caught my eye. The village tag had appeared, for the first time, not as coordinates, but as a name. Unknown settlement, active call zone. That shouldn't exist. because unknown settlements don't make calls, and active zones don't stay invisible. The breathing on the line stopped completely. Then the final voice came. Not loud, not distorted, just calm. They stay warm when the snow covers them, it said. A pause. Then, that's why we keep the storm going. The line went dead, but the system didn't close. It stayed open, and as I stared at the frozen screen, the village tag slowly expanded, not disappearing, growing, and for a second, I thought I saw movement inside it, like something shifting under snow, waiting, still connected, still calling. We shouldn't have seen light under ice. That was the first thing I wrote in the report. Then I deleted it, because reports aren't supposed to sound like panic. But what we saw didn't deserve calm language. It started with a thermal scan, standard procedure, frozen village zone, same place we lost contact in the last call. The snow was supposed to be dead, empty, static white. But the screen, it wasn't empty. It was glowing, soft at first, faint pulses under the frozen ground, like something was breathing beneath it. That was the first open loop, because nothing lives under frozen soil in a blizzard zone like that. Nothing should. The field technician leaned closer to the monitor. Heat signatures? He asked. I shook my head. No, I said slowly. This isn't heat. The shapes moved again, not randomly, not scattered, together, like they were following a pattern we couldn't see yet. That was the second open loop, because movement under frozen ground implies one thing, life. But this wasn't life I recognized. The team leader gave a short laugh. Probably buried infrastructure, he said. Old pipes, electrical leftovers. But even as he said it, his voice didn't believe it, because pipes don't move in synchronized waves. The scanner zoomed in automatically, and that's when the shapes became clearer. Thin lines of light, not red, not orange, something between blue and pale green, like the color was being chosen incorrectly by the machine. The technician whispered, "They're not fixed." I leaned forward. "Define not fixed." He swallowed. "They're shifting positions every time the scanner refreshes." That was the third open loop, because shifting underground geometry means the ground itself is unstable. Or worse, aware. We stepped outside the vehicle to get a visual. The wind hit immediately, hard enough to steal breath. Snow fell thick, sideways, like the sky was collapsing instead of snowing. But under it, there was a faint glow, not visible at first. Only when you stopped trying to see it directly. That detail made my stomach tighten, because perception shouldn't matter that much. But here it did. The technician pointed down. "There," he said. I looked. At first, nothing. Then I adjusted my focus, and the snow changed. Not physically, visually, like something underneath. It was bending the light upward, and beneath the ice sheet, something moved. Slow, measured, alive. That was the fourth open loop. Because frozen ground should not behave like glass, and glass doesn't hide movement. The team leader stepped back slightly. "No way," he muttered, but I could hear it in his voice now, doubt turning into fear. The glow intensified, just slightly, like it had noticed us noticing it. That realization made my throat tighten, because awareness changes everything. The technician spoke quietly. "What if it's trapped?" I looked at him. "That doesn't matter," I said. But even as I said it, I wasn't sure, because trapped things don't usually coordinate movement. The ground pulsed again, this time stronger, and for a second, the snow above it rose slightly, not melting, not breaking, lifting, like something underneath had pressed upward gently, testing resistance. That was the fifth open loop, because pressure from below means intent, and intent means direction. The radio in my jacket crackled suddenly. Dispatch voice came through. "We're seeing anomalies on your feed," they said, because under snow implies depth. But visibility was impossible in those conditions, and yet they were seeing something. The dispatcher stepped back slightly. "We need satellite confirmation," she said quickly. But before I could respond, the second team came in on the same channel. Unscheduled, unfiltered. "Base, do you hear that?" Another voice said. I felt my chest tighten, because now there were multiple teams on the same frequency, but only one valley. The first rescuer answered softly. Yes, he said. A pause. Don't listen too long. That sentence made everything colder, because warnings like that usually come after experience, after damage. The technician whispered, "They're not reporting, they're warning." The radio cracked again, and then a new sound joined in. Not voices, not wind, something like chanting, low, rhythmic, not human rhythm. Too even, too patient. The dispatcher grabbed the side of the console. "What is that?" she asked. No one answered her, because we were all listening now. The rescuer's voice returned, but broken. "It was never empty," he said. That was the sixth open loop, because if a place was never empty, then what had been there before the rescue teams arrived? The chanting grew louder, layered now, not from one direction, from all directions at once, like the valley itself was producing sound. The technician suddenly shouted, "We're losing signal integrity." But I was still listening, because the rescuer spoke one last time, and his voice had changed completely. Calm, almost accepting. "The village wasn't found," he said. A pause. Then, "It was remembered." That sentence didn't make sense. Not at first, but then I saw the system log update itself. Automatically. No input, no command. Just rewriting. The valley coordinates expanded, not outward on the map, inward, like something was being defined more clearly the longer we looked at it. The dispatcher whispered, "This isn't mapping anymore." No, it wasn't. It was recognition. The radio suddenly went quiet. All channels, all units, gone, just like that first team. But the system didn't clear. It stayed active. And then a final transmission appeared. Not audio, text, auto-generated. Unit 4, last log entry. We entered the valley at 1:58. Visibility was low. No signs of settlement. No structures. Then the snow started showing lights beneath it. We thought it was reflection. It wasn't. The ground feels layered, like something is underneath what we're standing on. We found buildings, but they were already occupied, not by people, by memory. The village speaks when we stop moving. We are not the first team here. We are the first team to remember it. If you are receiving this, do not send anyone into the valley, because it doesn't need to exist physically to take you. It only needs you to believe it does. The message ended, but my screen didn't return to normal. Instead, the valley coordinates stayed highlighted, and for a moment, just a moment, I saw movement inside the map. Not data, not signal, something resembling shape, like the valley itself was turning slightly. And somewhere deep and static, I thought I heard breathing again. Slow, patient, waiting for the next team to remember it into existence. The call came in with no location tag, just a voice, breathing too fast, like he had been running for hours without stopping. "Sector 7, he said. "We found their gear, but the trail is gone." That was the first thing that felt wrong, because trails don't just disappear. Not on official maps, not in real terrain. I leaned closer to the console. "Sir, confirm your position," I said. A pause. Then the wind hit the mic. Hard, sharp enough to distort the audio. "We're in the trees," he said. "But they're not on the map anymore." That was the first open loop, because trees don't vanish from maps unless someone removes them, or something stops them from being recorded. The dispatcher beside me frowned. "Sector 7 was updated last week," she said quietly. "It's a protected zone now." I checked the system. She was right, but something was still off, because Sector 7 used to show a full trail network. Now it was blank, not erased, blank, like it had never existed at all. The ranger's voice came back. Fainter now. "We followed the boot prints," he said. 3 sets. Fresh. Then they stopped. I felt my fingers tighten. Stopped how? I asked. Silence. Then, "They didn't end," he said slowly. "They just continued without direction." That was the second open loop, because footprints don't continue without direction unless the ground itself changes behavior. The dispatcher leaned in. "That's not possible tracking logic," she muttered. "No, it wasn't. But the ranger wasn't done. Then we heard them," he said. I leaned forward immediately. "Heard what?" I asked. A long pause. Then his voice dropped lower, calling back to us. That sentence made the room feel smaller, because echoes don't usually call names. I checked the map again. Sector 7 was still empty, but now I noticed something. A faint flicker at the edge of zone, like the system was trying to render something it couldn't stabilize. The ranger spoke again. "We think they're close," he said. A pause. "But we can't find where close is anymore." That was a third open loop, because close requires distance, and distance requires reference points. If both are gone, then location itself becomes unstable. The dispatcher whispered, "We should alert aerial support." But I didn't answer, because something new appeared on the audio feed. A second voice, very faint, not the ranger, not anyone on his team, just overlapping underneath him. "You shouldn't be here," it said. I froze. "Did you hear that?" the dispatcher asked. Yes, we both did, but the ranger didn't respond to it. That was the strange part, like he couldn't hear it at all. Only we could. The ranger continued. "We found a campsite," he said, "but the fire is still warm." I looked at the timestamp. They had been in the field for over 8 hours, in freezing conditions. Nothing should still be warm. That was the fourth open loop, because heat implies recent presence, and recent presence implies something is still here. The dispatcher stepped back slightly. "That's a survival anomaly," she said, but her voice didn't sound convinced, because anomalies don't usually speak. The ranger suddenly paused, longer this time. Then, "I think someone is walking behind us," he said. My heart tightened. "Do not turn around," I said quickly. "Stay in formation. Keep visual contact." A pause. Then, "We already turned once," he whispered. That changed everything, because turning means breaking formation. Breaking formation means vulnerability. The ranger's breathing got heavier. "We lost one of them," he said suddenly. That was the fifth open loop, because lost in a forest doesn't mean disappearance. It means separation, and separation in Sector 7 seemed permanent. The dispatcher grabbed the edge of the desk. "We need GPS lock now," she said sharply. I checked again. Nothing. Still blank. Still erased. But the ranger's voice became more unstable. "It's copying our movement," he said. I frowned. "Explain," I said. A pause. Then, "We stop. It stops. We move. It moves." The dispatcher shook her head. "That's tracking interference," she said. But I knew it wasn't that simple, because tracking interference doesn't imitate behavior. The ranger suddenly whispered, "It learned our pace." That was the sixth open loop, because learning pace means adaptation, and adaptation means intelligence. A cold silence followed. Then the second voice returned again, clearer this time. "Don't go deeper," it said. I felt my chest tighten, because now it wasn't just behind them. It was inside the conversation. The ranger finally reacted to it. "Who is that?" he asked. No response. Just silence. Then the forest sounds changed. Less wind, more stillness. Like everything had stopped listening, except them. The ranger spoke again. "We're heading back," he said quickly, but there was hesitation in his voice now. Like even back didn't feel real anymore. The dispatcher leaned closer. "Tell them to mark their path," she said. I did. "Mark your route immediately," I said into the mic. "Visual markers. Anything." A pause. Then, "We already did," he said. Another pause. "But they're not staying behind us." That sentence made my stomach drop, because markers are supposed to remain fixed. That was the seventh open loop, because if markers move, then the environment itself is rewriting continuity. The ranger suddenly spoke faster. "We're losing orientation," he said. "The trees are shifting." I checked the system again. Sector 7 flickered for the first time. Just once. Like something acknowledged we were watching. The dispatcher whispered. That zone was marked stable. But now it wasn't. The ranger's voice cracked slightly. "We found the trail again," he said. Relief almost entered his tone. "Then it's going in circles." Silence. Heavy. Then the second voice returned one final time. "Very close now. You were never supposed to leave Sector 7, it said. The ranger stopped breathing for a second. Then, "Who are you?" he asked again. No answer. Just wind. But even the wind sounded wrong now. Too structured. Too rhythmic. Like it was repeating patterns instead of flowing naturally. The dispatcher looked at me. "We should cut this," she said quietly. But I didn't move, because the ranger said something that didn't belong in any survival report. His voice was calm now. Strangely calm. "I think Sector 7 moves when we stop looking at it," he said. That sentence hung in the room. Because if a place depends on observation, then it doesn't exist independently. The radio suddenly hissed. A long, distorted wave. Then silence. Complete. No ranger. No wind. Nothing. I stared at the screen, waiting. Then the system updated itself. Automatically. Sector 7 reappeared on the map, but it wasn't empty anymore. A small blinking sat inside it, motionless, alive, still transmitting, and just before the feed fully stabilized, I thought I heard footsteps in the background of the console, inside the building, slow, moving toward the door. But when I turned to check, nothing was there, only the map, still showing Sector 7, still active, still calling. The footsteps started copying us on the 3rd mile. At first, I thought it was just echo. Snow does that sometimes. It bends sound, makes your own movement feel like it's following you. But this was different, because the timing was perfect, too perfect. Every step I took came a second later from behind the trees. Same weight, same rhythm, same pause, like something was learning me in real time. The ranger's voice came through the radio, low and tight. "Do you hear that?" he asked. I didn't answer right away, because I did hear it, and I didn't want to admit it. A second set of boots moving through fresh snow behind their patrol line, matching exactly. I leaned closer to the speaker. "Confirm distance," I said. A long pause. Then the ranger whispered, "It's right behind us, but there's nothing there when we turn." That was the first open loop, because something that exists only when unobserved shouldn't be able to move at all. The dispatcher frowned beside me. "That could be wind delay echo patterns," she said. But her voice didn't sound convinced. Neither did mine. The ranger spoke again, slower now. "We stopped walking," he said. Another pause. But it didn't. That was the second open loop. Because imitation without source means intent, and intent means awareness. I checked the live feed. Nothing but white static and shifting tree lines. No figures. No motion. Just the sound of breathing and snow crunch. Then, footstep. Clear. Behind them. The ranger's breathing sharpened. "Don't move," I said quickly into mic. "Hold position. Do not react." A beat of silence. Then, "It stopped when we stopped," he said. That sentence made my stomach tighten, because that means it wasn't following them. It was syncing with them. The dispatcher leaned closer to the console. "That's impossible behavioral mirroring," she whispered. But I wasn't thinking about systems anymore. I was thinking about something walking just out of sight, waiting for permission to continue. The ranger suddenly whispered, "It's doing my patrol route." I froze. "Explain," I said. He hesitated. Then, "It's stepping exactly where I stepped an hour ago." That was the third open loop, because memory shouldn't have physical footprint. But this thing was walking history, not ground. The radio crackled. A second voice slipped through for half a second. Not the ranger, not anyone on his team. Just a calm tone, almost curious. "You always turn left at the broken pine," it said. The ranger stopped breathing. I felt my hands go cold, because that wasn't random. That was specific, intimate, observed. The dispatcher stepped back slightly. "That's not possible," she said again. But her voice was smaller now, like she was trying to convince herself more than us. The ranger finally spoke. "Who are you?" he asked into the dark. No answer came, but the footsteps continued, still matching, Still precise. Then something changed. The sound got closer. Not by distance. By delay. Like the gap between action and imitation was shrinking. The ranger suddenly said, "It's speeding up." I leaned forward. "Don't run," I said immediately. If it's copying motion, running will escalate sync. But I was already too late, because I heard it, the sudden shift in rhythm. Their footsteps increased. So did the echo, twice as fast now. No delay. Perfect synchronization. The ranger's voice cracked. "It's inside the rhythm now," he said. That was the fourth open loop. Because once imitation becomes simultaneous, there is no original anymore, just duplication. The dispatcher grabbed my arm. "Cut the channel," she said quickly. But I didn't, because something in me needed to hear what happened next. The ranger suddenly stopped talking. Completely. Only breathing remained. Heavy. Controlled. Then a new sound entered the line. Not footsteps. Not wind. A third set of movement. But slower. Dragging. Like something learning how to walk incorrectly on purpose. The ranger whispered. It changed shape. I frowned. "Explain," I said, but instead of answering, he described it like he was trying to keep his mind steady. "It's walking like us," he said. A pause, but not using our joints right. That was the fifth open loop. Because imitation without anatomy means interpretation, and interpretation means distortion. The dispatcher turned to me. "This is psychological breakdown under stress," she said quickly, but I didn't believe that anymore, because the audio was too structured, too intentional. The ranger suddenly shouted, "We see it!" The feed spiked. White noise surged. Then a frame appeared. Just for a second, a shape between trees. Tall, human in outline, but wrong in proportion. Arms slightly too long. Head tilted at an angle no neck should support. And it was standing exactly where the ranger had been 30 minutes ago. Perfect alignment. Perfect replication. Then it moved, one step forward. And behind it, the echo stepped too. The ranger whispered. It learned the turn. That sentence hit differently. Because turns are choices. And choices are what define a person's path. The dispatcher shook her head. "No system can predict human micro-movement at that level," she said. But I wasn't looking at systems anymore. I was looking at something that didn't need prediction, only observation. The ranger's voice softened again, almost resigned. "It doesn't chase us," he said. A pause. "It becomes us." That was the sixth open loop, because becoming requires replacement. And replacement means we were never separate to begin with. The footsteps stopped again. Suddenly, everything went silent. The ranger exhaled slowly. Then, "It stopped because I stopped thinking about it," he said. I felt that line in my chest, because that suggested something worse. That awareness was feeding it. The dispatcher whispered, "Is it cognitive linked?" But before anyone could answer, the ranger added one last thing. Quiet, almost afraid to admit it. "I think it only walks when we remember how we walk." Silence. Heavy. Absolute. Then the radio crackled one final time. A voice, not as anymore, slid into the channel. "Calm. Close. Familiar. You forgot your last step," it said. And the line went dead. I stared at the frozen signal. But in my head, I could still hear footsteps. Matching mine. 1 second behind. Learning. The first time it happened, I thought it was delay. Just a signal echo. Nothing more. But then I heard myself speaking, before I actually spoke. And that's when I stopped breathing for a second. Because that's not how radio works. The ranger's channel was still open on my console. Static pulsing like a weak heartbeat. Then his voice came through. Clear. Calm. "I think it's following the signal now," he said. I leaned closer. "Confirm what is following you." I asked. A pause. Then my own voice answered, before I even opened my mouth. "Don't ask that," it said. I froze. The dispatcher beside me looked up sharply. "You heard that?" she asked. I nodded slowly, because I had definitely not spoken, but the radio had. That was the first open loop, because a system cannot output speech before input exists, unless the input is not time-bound anymore. The ranger's breathing became uneven. Did you just talk? He asked through the mic. I grabbed the console. No one here spoke. I said firmly, but even as I said it, the radio repeated me. Not delayed, not distorted. Exact. No one here spoke. It echoed. My stomach tightened. The dispatcher stepped back slightly. That's playback contamination, she said quickly. Looped recording artifact. But I knew it wasn't that, because the voice was responding in real time, like it knew when I would speak. The ranger suddenly whispered, "It's learning the order conversation." That was a second open loop, because conversation requires sequence, and sequence requires time moving forward. If something predicts sequence, then time is no longer necessary. The radio crackled again, and then a third voice entered, soft, almost amused. "You always ask before you think," it said. I felt my throat go dry, because that wasn't the ranger, and it wasn't me, but it sounded like both of us combined. The dispatcher leaned in. "We need to isolate that frequency," she said. But I couldn't move, because the radio spoke again, this time using my tone. Same pacing, same breath pattern. "You're checking the logs right now," it said, and that was a third open loop, because it wasn't just repeating speech. It was anticipating behavior. The ranger suddenly spoke fast. "Stop analyzing it," he said. "It gets clearer when you do that." A pause. Then the radio interrupted him, in his exact voice. "I told you not to think about it." I closed my eyes for half a second, because now it wasn't just copying. It was distributing voices, assigning them like roles. The dispatcher whispered, "This is impossible behavioral mirroring again." But I shook my head. "No," I said quietly. "This is predictive synthesis." Because this was an echo. It was anticipation made audible. The ranger suddenly went silent. Then his voice returned, but slower, confused. "I didn't say that last sentence," he said. I leaned closer to Mike. "Which one?" I asked. A pause. Then, "The one I'm hearing right now," he said. That was the fourth open loop, because now there were multiple layers of speech existing simultaneously. Some spoken, some predicted, some overheard before they happened. The radio suddenly hissed. Long static surge. Then my own voice came through again, but wrong this time, slightly delayed, like it was correcting itself. "You're going to ask what it wants," it said. The dispatcher grabbed my arm. "We cut this channel now," she said firmly. But before I could respond, the ranger spoke again. Quiet, almost broken. "I already know what it wants," he said. A pause. Then, "It wants the next sentence." Silence dropped into the room. Heavy, because that sentence made no survival sense. But it made system sense. If something consumes prediction, then it doesn't need action, only continuation. The radio crackled again, and then it spoke in perfect unison with the ranger. Not echo, not delay, synchronization. "We already know what happens next," both voices said. I felt my chest tighten, because that meant causality was collapsing into alignment. The dispatcher whispered, "This isn't a field transmission anymore." I finished her thought. "It's recursive speech modeling," I said, but even saying it felt wrong, because the system shouldn't be able to model itself through conversation alone. The ranger suddenly stopped responding, just breathing. Then a new voice entered. Not mine, not his, but structure like both. "You're trying to interrupt me," it said. I froze, because it wasn't asking, it was observing. The radio continued. "That won't work," it said calmly. "You already said the next part." I felt a chill spread through my hands, because I had not said anything, but the console showed active audio output spikes, like something was being spoken through me without my consent. The dispatcher stepped back. "We're losing control of the feed integrity," she said. But I wasn't listening anymore, because the ranger whispered something that didn't belong in any radio log. "It's inside the pause between words," he said. That was the fifth open loop, because pauses are absence, and absence shouldn't contain structure. The radio suddenly repeated him, but slightly earlier. "It's inside the pause between words," it said. Then again, and again, each repetition closer to the present moment, like it was catching up to itself. The ranger suddenly shouted, "Stop speaking to it." But even that was echoed instantly. "Stop speaking to it." The radio repeated. No delay now. No separation. Just perfect duplication. Then a new sound entered the line. Soft breathing. Close. Too close. And then my voice came through again. Not what I said. What I was about to say. "You're already part of the loop," it said. I backed away from the console instinctively because I hadn't spoken yet. But it had. The dispatcher looked at me with fear now. "That's not radio," she said. No, it wasn't. It was thought extraction. The ranger suddenly whispered one last thing. Calm. Resigned. "If you hear your own voice before you think it," he said. A pause. Then you're already inside it. Silence followed. Long. Heavy. Then the radio clicked once. And for the first time, nothing echoed back. Just a new voice. Soft. Patient. Familiar. Waiting. And it said the exact sentence I was about to think next. The forest went quiet before we even saw it. Not normal quiet. The kind that feels like sound has been taken out of the air. Even the radio has faded for a second. That's when I knew something ahead was wrong. The ranger's voice came through, low and unstable. "We found something," he said. I leaned in closer. "Confirmed visual," I replied. A long pause followed. Too long. Then, "It's a tower," he said. That was the first open loop. Because there are no registered towers in Sector 7's forest grid. None. The dispatcher stepped closer to my console. "That area has no infrastructure," she said immediately. But the ranger continued anyway. "It's old," he added. "Too old to still be powered." I felt my stomach tighten slightly. Because too old usually means abandoned. But abandoned things don't emit emergency signals. I checked the frequency feed. And there it was. A steady pulse. Emergency band. Clean. Perfect. Coming from deep inside the forest. That was the second open loop. Because emergency frequencies are supposed to be man-made distress signals, not environmental background noise. The ranger's breathing changed. "We didn't see it until we were almost on top of it," he said. I frowned. "Explain approach path," I asked. A pause. Then, "There wasn't one," he said. That sentence didn't make sense. Paths require movement. Movement requires ground definition. But the audio suggested they arrived without transition, as if the forest had accepted them instantly. The dispatcher whispered, that spatial discontinuity reporting. But her voice sounded uneasy now. The ranger spoke again. "It rises between the trees," he said. That was the third open loop. Because structures don't grow between trees without clearance, construction, or visibility in maps. Unless the structure existed before the forest did. I checked satellite overlays again. Nothing. Just dense canopy. No geometry beneath it. But the signal was stronger now. So strong it was bleeding into the room speaker. A repeating emergency tone. Not standard. Slightly off rhythm. Like someone trying to imitate distress, but missing emotional timing. The ranger suddenly went silent. Then, a second voice entered the channel. Not his team. Not dispatch. Just calm. Measured. "You should not be here," it said. The dispatcher stepped back immediately. "Who is that?" she asked. No answer came. Only the tower's signal growing stronger. The ranger finally whispered. "It's broadcasting," he said. I leaned forward. "Broadcasting what?" I asked. A pause. Then, "Us," he said. That was the fourth open loop. Because broadcasting implies transmission outward. But he said, "us," which implies capture, not emission. The ranger's voice shook slightly now. "We see people inside it," he said. I froze. "Alive?" I asked. Another pause. Then, "They are repeating us," he said. That hit differently. Because repetition without understanding is imitation. But repetition with awareness becomes something else. The dispatcher whispered, "That tower shouldn't have internal occupancy." No, it shouldn't have existed at all. The ranger continued. "They stand in rows," he said. facing inward. I frowned. Toward what? I asked. Silence. Then, the sound, he said. That was the fifth open loop. Because sound is directional only when sourced externally. But if people are facing sound itself, then the sound is physical. The emergency frequency suddenly spiked, so loud it clipped the audio feed. The technician at my station stepped closer. Signal saturation is increasing, he said. But I wasn't looking at him anymore. I was listening to something inside the recording. A faint secondary rhythm beneath the alarm tone. Breathing. Slow. Structured. Not human panic breathing. Controlled. Like something sustaining itself through repetition. The ranger suddenly spoke again. We're going inside, he said. I reacted immediately. No, I said sharply into mic. Hold position outside structure perimeter. A pause. Then, we already stepped in, he replied. That was the sixth open loop. Because entry usually defines boundary crossing. But his tone suggested entry happened after observation, not before. The world inside the recording shifted. Wind disappeared. Even footsteps became muffled. The ranger's voice changed slightly, like it was echoing off metal walls now. We're in a vertical space, he said. I frowned. Confirm structure layout, I asked. A pause. Then, it doesn't have floors, he said. That sentence made my chest tighten. Because vertical structures without floors are not buildings. They are enclosures, or containment systems. The dispatcher leaned closer to me. This is impossible architecture, she said quietly, but the signal kept expanding. Now I could hear it directly from the console speaker, without amplification. A repeating distressed tone, layered with something underneath. Something almost like speech. The ranger suddenly went quiet again. Then, a new voice entered. Very close. Not through radio anymore. Through proximity to microphone itself. You arrived late, it said. I felt my skin go cold. Because that wasn't transmission. That was presence. The technician stepped back from the equipment. Audio origin is not external anymore, he said. I stared at the console. The signal waveform had changed. It was no longer linear. It was looping inward, self-referencing. The ranger whispered again. They know we're listening, he said. That was the seventh open loop. Because awareness of observation changes behavior, and this system clearly adapted to observation. The emergency frequency suddenly stabilized. Perfectly stable. Too stable. Then the tower spoke again. Not through distortion. Through clarity. You built us from repetition, it said. The dispatcher froze. That's not possible, she whispered. But the voice continued. You kept calling until we answered, it said. I felt my throat tighten. Because emergency systems rely on repetition. Repeat until response. Repeat until acknowledgement. Repeat until something answers. The ranger suddenly said something that didn't belong in protocol. Soft, almost emotional. We didn't mean to wake it, he said. The tower responded immediately. You always do, it said. Silence followed. Heavy. Then, the ranger took a sharp breath. We see more of them now, he said. I leaned closer. To find them, I asked. A pause. Then, people who answered first, he said. That was the eighth open loop. Because first responders imply hierarchy. But here, response itself seemed to be selection. The dispatcher whispered, we should terminate all field communications. But I couldn't, because something in me needed to understand the final layer. The ranger suddenly spoke one last time. Very quiet. They're learning how to call us back, he said. The tower's signal surged again. And for a moment, just a moment, I thought I heard my own voice inside the emergency frequency. Not repeating, not delayed, waiting, like it had already finished the conversation before I ever joined it. It didn't end when he stopped talking. That was the first thing we realized. The ranger's voice cut off mid-sentence, clean and sudden, like someone had closed the door inside the signal. But the channel stayed open, and the breathing stayed. At first, I thought it was residual audio, leftover compression noise. That's what I told myself. But then the breathing changed. It slowed down, matched a rhythm, not random anymore, intentional. like someone was choosing when to inhale. I leaned closer to the console without even realizing it. The dispatcher didn't speak. Nobody did. Because once you notice breathing where there shouldn't be any, you stop trusting silence. That was the first open loop. Because a dead transmission should go empty, not alive. The audio feed was still locked on Sector 7. Still stable. Still broadcasting. But now it wasn't words. Just breath. Soft. Close. Too close for distance. The technician whispered, "It's still transmitting from the ranger's device." I shook my head. "No," I said quietly. "He stopped transmitting hours ago." That's when the second sound appeared. A knock. Not loud. Not urgent. Just precise. 3 taps. Then silence. Then again. 3 taps. I felt my stomach tighten. Because knocking isn't part of radio transmission. That was the second open loop. Because sound like that implies contact. Physical contact. I checked the waveform. It had flattened into a repeating cycle. Breath. Knock. Breath. Knock. The dispatcher finally spoke. "We should terminate the channel," she said. But nobody moved. Because something about the pattern made it hard to interrupt. Like breaking it would mean acknowledging it was real. The breathing grew slightly louder. Not volume increase. Proximity increase. That was the third open loop. Because distance in audio doesn't usually shift without source movement, unless the source is approaching. The technician stepped back from the console. "Signal origin is still fixed at Sector 7 coordinates," he said. But his voice didn't sound convinced, because the sound no longer behaved like it came from a fixed point. It felt like it was inside the room now. The knocking came again, this time closer together. Not 3 taps. 2. Then pause. Then 1. Like something was learning impatience. I pressed a mic key. "Ranger," I said. No response. Just breathing. Then a faint shift, like something had leaned closer to the microphone. The dispatcher looked at me sharply. "Did you hear that?" she asked. "Yes, I did." A subtle scrape, like fabric brushing against metal. That was the fourth open loop. Because movement should produce consistent audio signatures. This was irregular, controlled. The breathing suddenly stopped. Complete silence hit the channel. For half a second. Then a single exhale, right into the mic. Close enough to distort the feed. The technician backed away. "That's not remote," he said. "No, it wasn't." The dispatcher whispered. "He's not speaking anymore." I finished her thought without realizing. "But something is still using the channel," I said. The breathing returned. Slower now. Deeper. Almost calm. Then the voice came back. Not words. Just tone. Low. Broken. Like someone trying to form speech, but forgetting how. I felt my chest tighten. Because forgetting language means degradation. But this wasn't random decay. It was structured absence. The knocking started again. Faster. This time not in pattern, but in response. Like it was reacting to our presence. That was the fifth open loop. Because response behavior requires awareness of audience. The dispatcher moved closer to the console again. "We need to isolate output source," she said. But I couldn't stop listening, because the breathing had changed again. It wasn't alone anymore. There were layers now, multiple breaths, slightly out of sync, like more than one person was inside the same transmission space. I swallowed hard. The technician whispered, "That's impossible overlap." But we were hearing it, so it wasn't impossible. It was happening. Then the knocking stopped completely. A long silence followed. Heavy, waiting. Then a whisper, barely audible, not language, but shaped like one. It came through the ranger's channel, like it was testing speech. The dispatcher froze. "What is that?" she asked. No one answered, because the whisper repeated itself. Closer, clearer, almost forming structure. And then it did something worse. It started mimicking our room. I heard my own chair creak in the audio, even though I hadn't moved. That was the sixth open loop. Because environmental replication means observation beyond signal. The breathing returned again, now steady, now calm, like it had settled. Accepted. The technician suddenly said, "We're still receiving power draw from the Ranger's device." I looked at him. "That's not possible," I said. But the system confirmed it. Active draw. Continuous. Unbroken. Even though the Ranger was silent. Dead silent. Or not speaking anymore. The dispatcher's voice dropped. "We're listening to something that hasn't stopped," she said quietly. Yes, that was it. It hadn't stopped. Just changed form. The knocking came back. This time from inside the speaker itself. Not through it. Inside it. A physical resonance through metal housing. I stepped back instinctively. The technician did too. The dispatcher whispered, "Turn it off." But I couldn't, because the system wouldn't respond. No shutdown command registered. That was the seventh open loop. Because loss of control at system level implies external override, not failure, interference. The breathing suddenly paused again. Then, a voice. Not Ranger. Not unknown. Something between both. "It's still here," it said. I felt my throat go dry, because that meant awareness persisted, even after speech stopped. The dispatcher whispered, "We should evacuate the room." But no one moved, because the channel spoke again. And this time, it sounded like it was right behind us. Not on radio, not on console, just presence in the space between us. "It learned how to stay," it said. Silence followed. Long, heavy. Then the breathing returned one final time. Very soft, very close. And then the knocking resumed. Not on metal, not on speaker, on something else, like it had found the walls of the room itself. The dispatcher finally stepped away from the console, her voice barely above a whisper. "We stopped receiving his voice," she said. A pause. Then, "But something is still answering." And as I looked at the frozen signal on the screen, I realized something that made my skin go cold. The waveform wasn't flat anymore. It was repeating our silence back at us. Perfectly. The lights went out first. Not slowly. Not like a normal failure. Just gone. 1 second. The oil rig was alive with noise and orange light. Next second, nothing. Only the ocean stayed the same. And then the radio cracked. "Mayday, Mayday, this is Rig 9. You copy?" His voice was shaking. Not like fear exactly. More like confusion. Like he couldn't trust what he was seeing anymore. I leaned closer to the console. The ocean feeds were down. All of them. Cameras frozen in black static. Wind readings gone. Even the backup systems weren't responding. Only the emergency channel was still alive. And only one man was on it. Control. Something is moving underwater. A pause. Long enough that I thought we lost him too. Then, "It's too big. It's not supposed to be here." I pressed the transmit key. "Rig 9, this is Coast Control. Confirm your status. What do you see?" My own voice sounded too calm, too clean, like it didn't belong in his world anymore. Static answered me first. Then his breathing came back. Fast, wet, like he was running. "I can't see the horizon anymore," he said. That line didn't make sense. A rig in the middle of the ocean always sees the horizon. Always, unless something was blocking it or covering it. He continued before I could ask. "The water is not flat anymore. It's rising, but not like waves." A soft metallic sound came through the line, like something dragging across steel. Then another sound, a knock, 3 times. Slow, like someone testing a door. I felt my fingers tighten on the console. "Is someone else with you?" I asked. No answer, just breathing. And then, suddenly his voice dropped lower, almost whispering. No one is here. That's the problem." A second of silence passed. Then the radio hissed. And something changed in his tone. Not fear, recognition. "I think it knows I'm alone." That sentence made my stomach tighten. Because people don't say that unless they already accepted something worse. I checked the rig's logs again. All systems still offline. But one thing flickered for half a second on the screen. Motion detection. Underwater. Then gone. I stared at it, waiting for it to come back. It didn't. The radio crackled again. His voice was closer now, like he was standing right next to the microphone instead of holding it. "It's circling the rig," he said. I looked at the live map. Nothing was there. No ships. No alerts. No sonar returns. Just empty ocean. But I believed him more than I believed the screen. "Describe it," I said. A long pause. Then, "I can't." My grip tightened. "What do you mean you can't?" His breathing broke for a second, like he almost laughed. Or cried. "I mean, every time I look at it, I forget what I saw." That was the first time I felt something cold spread through my chest. Not fear of the ocean. Fear of his mind breaking in real time. Another knock came through the radio. Closer. Clearer. Now it wasn't metal anymore. It sounded like wood. Like something tapping on the inside of the rig. From below. "I think it's inside the structure," he whispered. I stood up without realizing it. The room around me suddenly felt too quiet. Like even the machines were listening. I pressed the emergency alert for Rig 9 again. No response. Not even system failure tones. Just silence. Then his voice came back, slower now. "We checked below deck after the first blackout," he said. "Nothing was there." A pause. But something checked us back. My throat went dry. That sentence didn't belong in a report. It didn't belong in anything real. And still, he said it like it was normal. Like he had already accepted it. A new sound came through the line. Water. Not waves. Dripping. Inside metal. "I hear movement in the walls," he said. Then he corrected himself. "No, not in the walls. In the space between them." I felt my eyes drift to the schematic screen. Rig 9 was a giant structure of steel towers and sealed corridors. There was no between in it, unless something was inside places that were never meant to be accessed. The radio suddenly warped. His voice doubled for a second. Like another version of him spoke at the same time. "Don't send anyone down here." The second voice was lower, calmer. Wrong. Then it vanished. Only his original voice remained, breathing harder now. "I didn't say that," he said quickly, but I hadn't asked. I looked at the timestamp on the feed. We had been in contact for 17 minutes. The rig had been dark for over an hour before that. Something had already been happening before he called us. I pressed closer to the mic. "Rig 9, listen to me. I need you to stay calm. Can you reach the evacuation pod?" A pause, then a soft laugh. Not his. It came through the radio like it was inside the signal itself. Then his voice came back, shaky again. "There is no pod." I froze. "That's not possible. Your rig has emergency escape systems." Another pause, longer this time. When he spoke again, his words were slower, careful, like he was remembering something that didn't want to be remembered. "We checked those too," he said. "They were never installed." A chill crawled up my spine, because I had seen the rig specs myself. They were there. They had to be there, right? I turned to backup file system, pulling old engineering records. But halfway through loading them, the screen flickered. Just once. And the rig schematic changed. The escape pod were gone. Not marked as offline. Not damaged. Gone. Like they had never existed. My breath caught. I whispered without meaning to, "What the hell?" The radio responded instantly, except it wasn't his voice anymore. It was both voices again, overlapping. One saying my name, the other saying nothing at all, just breathing. Slow. Close. Too close. I stepped back from the console. The room felt smaller now, like the walls had moved in while I wasn't looking. Then his voice returned. Weak. Almost apologetic. "I think it learned how we listen," he said. "What does that mean?" I asked, but I already felt the answer forming in my head. He didn't respond. Instead, there was a long stretch of silence. No wind, no water, no static, just emptiness. And then, knock, knock, knock. But this time it wasn't on the radio. It came from the wall behind me. I turned so fast, I almost knocked the chair over. Nothing there. Just steel. Cold and still. The radio whispered again. Not loudly, not clearly, but enough. It's not outside anymore. My hand hovered over the emergency shutdown for the entire channel. But I didn't press it, because I realized something that made my skin go cold. If the signal was still open, Then, whatever was on Rig 9 was still connected, still listening, still learning. And then the final thing he said came through, not like a message, more like something being said right next to my ear through broken static. "I can hear your room now." The line went dead after that, but the breathing didn't stop. Even after the transmission ended, even after I killed the channel, it kept going, soft, steady, patient, like it had finally found somewhere new to stay. And I swear, the last thing I heard before the system locked itself was a faint knock from inside my own wall. It didn't make sense the moment I saw it. The ocean feed came back online for exactly 4 seconds. 4 seconds was all it needed to ruin everything. At first, it looked normal. Dark water, heavy waves, night vision blur. Then the water shifted, not like a current, like something moved underneath it. Something too large to care about hiding. I leaned closer to the monitor without thinking. The shape came again, this time clearer. A shadow stretched across the underside of Rig 9, moving slow, circling like it already knew the structure. My mouth went dry. "Zoom in," I whispered. The system lagged for half a second, then obeyed. The image sharpened, and I wished it hadn't. It wasn't one shape. It was many, long, uneven, layered forms moving under the waterline, weaving around each other like they were part of the same body, or the same thought. No fish moved like that. No whale. No machine. Nothing from anything we had ever studied behaved like that. I checked the depth scanner. It showed nothing. Just empty blue readings like the ocean had been wiped clean below a certain point. But the camera didn't agree. The camera kept watching something that officially wasn't there. A voice crackled through the radio behind me. Not Rig 9 this time. Our internal backup channel. "Control, do you see that on feed 2? I didn't answer immediately, because I wasn't sure I was allowed to. Then I said, "Yeah, I see it." A pause. Then the technician on the other end whispered, "That's impossible." I almost laughed at that. Almost. Because everything I had seen for the last hour was impossible. But this was different. This wasn't just wrong. It felt aware. The shapes under the rig slowed, then stopped directly beneath the main support pillars, like they were waiting or listening. I felt my chest tighten. Are they attacking the structure? I asked. No answer came right away. Just static breathing through the line. Then the technician said, "No, they're not attacking it." Another pause. His voice dropped lower. "They're holding it." I looked at the screen again. The shapes had aligned themselves under the rig's base like hands under something fragile, supporting it, not shaking it, not pulling it down, holding it in place, like the ocean itself was deciding whether to keep it above water or take it. A cold thought crawled into my mind before I could stop it. What if the rig wasn't sitting on the ocean floor at all? What if it was sitting on them? The feed flickered, then switched angles automatically. A lower camera, closer to the waterline. And that's when I saw the detail that made my stomach drop. The rig wasn't casting a shadow. It was being outlined, like something beneath it was glowing faintly, tracing its shape from below. Not light, not reflection. Something else. Something that made the metal look like it didn't belong there. The radio suddenly cut in again. This time it was Rig 9. But the voice wasn't the same as before. It was calmer. Too calm. Almost detached. "You're watching it now," he said. I froze. "Who is this?" I asked, a soft breath on the line. Then, "It's still under us," he said. "It never left." I gripped the edge of the console. "Where are you?" I demanded. "We lost your signal hours ago." A pause, then a strange answer. "I think you're talking to the wrong part of me." My skin went cold. That wasn't a response a person should give. That was a response something imitates after listening too long. I looked back at the feed. The shapes under the rig shifted again, not moving away, moving upward, closer, slowly rising toward the underside of the platform, like they had finished deciding. The technician came back on the line, panic rising in his voice now. "Control, the pressure sensors are spiking beneath Rig 9. That depth shouldn't even exist there." I didn't respond, because I was watching the same thing. The ocean floor reading had changed. It wasn't flat anymore. It was structured, like something massive had carved space under it, or like the ocean had been built around something already there. A new shadow appeared on the screen, not below the rig. Inside it, I leaned forward, switched to internal cameras. I said fast. The system hesitated, then complied. The view jumped inside Rig 9's lower maintenance tunnels. Dark, narrow, empty, for a second, then a sound came through the feed. Metal creaking, slow, like something adjusting its weight. Then another sound followed, knocking, from inside the rig, but not on doors, on the frame, on the bones of it. I swallowed hard. Rig 9, I said into the channel, even though I wasn't sure who would answer. Report internal movement. Silence. Then a voice came through, not from the radio, from the camera mic itself, right inside the maintenance tunnel feed. I think it knows how to stand now. My heart hit my ribs hard. Who is this? I shouted. No response. Just breathing again. But this time it wasn't distant. It was close enough that I instinctively pulled back from the monitor. The technician spoke again, voice shaking now. Control, the sonar is showing movement inside the support pillars. I looked at him. That's not possible. He shook his head fast. I know, but it's inside the metal. It's inside the structure itself. I turned back to the main feed. The shapes under the rig were no longer circling. They were rising, slowly, like something massive pushing itself upward through water and steel at the same time. And then I saw it, a slight distortion along the underside of Rig 9, like the metal wasn't bending. It was being listened to. I whispered without meaning to, "What are they doing?" The radio answered instantly, but not from Rig 9, from everywhere at once. They're learning where you are. The lights in my control room flickered once, just once, and in that moment of darkness, I swear I heard it, not through the speakers, not through the radio. Right behind me, a slow wet knock, inside the wall. It started with my name. Clear, too clear. Ethan! I froze at the console. The ocean feed was still open, but nothing unusual showed on screen. Just dark water under Rig 9, slow movement, distant turbulence. No source for sound. And still, "Ethan, help me." My throat tightened. That voice, it sounded exactly like my sister. Same tone, same soft break in the middle of her words when she was scared. I stood up slowly. "Did you hear that?" I asked the room. No one answered, but I saw the technician across from me stop typing. His hands were shaking. He whispered, "That's my mother." We both looked at the speakers at the same time. The ocean channel was open, no human input, just raw underwater audio. And still, voices kept coming through. Not one, multiple, layered, like the sea had learned how to speak by listening too long. "Please, I'm still here. I told you not to leave me. Why didn't you come back?" Each voice felt personal, too personal. I grabbed the audio filter controls and slammed them up. The system tried to clean the signal. It made it worse, because now the voices became clearer, more structured, like someone was organizing them. A new voice cut through everything. Mine. "I think it knows where you are." I stepped back from the console. "That's not possible," I whispered, but my own voice repeated again, slightly delayed, slightly wrong. "I think it knows where you are." The technician stood up fast. No, this is impossible. That's internal comm phrasing. That's our system language." I turned to him. "Shut it down." He already was. His fingers were moving fast, pulling power from channels, isolating feeds, cutting backup loops. But the voices didn't stop. They just shifted, like they didn't need the system anymore. Now they were inside it. The ocean feed flickered again, and for half a second, I saw something new under the water. Not shapes this time, not movement, reflections, faces, but not distorted like water normally does. Clear, standing just below the surface of the feed. Looking up, then the audio changed again, and I heard my father's voice, dead for 6 years, calling my name like I was still a child. I stumbled back, so hard I hit the chair. The technician was already backing away too. "No," he said. "No, that's not real. That's not real." But his phone started ringing. We both looked at it. Unknown number. He didn't answer. It answered itself. And his mother's voice filled the room. Soft, calm, like she was standing right behind him. "I'm still waiting for you at home." He dropped the phone instantly. It hit the floor, still playing, still speaking, still breathing. The ocean feed zoomed in on its own. We didn't touch it. It just focused on something deeper under Rig 9, something rising slowly. The voices changed again. Now, they weren't calling randomly. They were responding to us. "I can hear you thinking," my voice said from the speakers. I grabbed the mic. "Stop this. Who is this?" Silence. Then all voices answered at once. "We are already here." The technician suddenly pointed at the screen. His face had gone pale. "There, look." I turned. At first I didn't see it. Just ocean movement. Then I noticed it. The water was no longer random. It was patterned, like sound waves, like speech given shape. Every ripple matched a syllable. Every movement matched language. The ocean wasn't echoing voices anymore. It was forming them, learning them. I whispered, "It's copying us." The technician shook his head fast. No, it's not copying. It's remembering." That word hit harder than anything else. Remembering. Because that meant it had heard everything. Not just now, but before. Every call, every transmission, every emergency signal sent into water that never forgets anything that passes through it. The speakers crackled again, and this time the voice came from all directions at once. "Do you want to hear them again?" My chest tightened. "What?" I whispered. The ocean feed shifted, and suddenly every lost transmission we had ever received from Rig 9 played at once. Layered, twisted, repeated. A choir of human panic trapped underwater. And in between those voices, something else. A low sound, not speaking, not breathing, listening. The technician backed away from the console completely now. "I'm cutting main power," he said. "No." I snapped without thinking. He stopped. I don't know why I said it. Maybe because part of me already knew power didn't matter anymore. The system wasn't hosting the sound. It was translating it. The ocean itself was the source now. The feed flickered violently, then stabilized, and I saw something I will never forget. Under Rig 9, the shapes had changed. They weren't just holding the structure anymore. They were wrapped around it, like something learning how to wear it. And then a voice came through that wasn't human at all. But it used human words perfectly. "We like your voices." The technician whispered. That's not language, but I knew it was. Just not ours. Yet, the room lights flickered. Once, twice, and every screen in the control room showed the same thing at the same time. The ocean surface above Rig 9. Completely still. Too still, like it was listening back. Then my own voice came again. Not from speakers. From the walls. From the air vents. From everywhere the sound could hide. "You shouldn't have taught us how to speak." I couldn't breathe properly anymore. The technician grabbed my arm. "We have to leave. Now." But I couldn't move, because a final feed update appeared on the screen. Automatic. No input. A message labeled. Source location identified. Coordinates flashed. Not just Rig 9. Not just the ocean. Something far bigger. Expanding. Like the sound itself had spread through water systems connected across the world. The technician saw it too, and whispered, "It's not just Rig 9 anymore." The speakers went silent for 1 second. Pure silence. And in that silence, I thought it was over, until every device in the room spoke at once. Calm, clear, familiar. "I heard your world." The lights died, but the sound stayed. 3:14 a.m. That's when everything stopped. No alarms, no voices, no static, just silence. So complete it felt like the ocean itself had been holding its breath and finally decided to let us go. I was standing inside the control room when it happened. Screens flickered once, then froze. The green lines that showed movement under the water went dead flat, like someone had drawn a knife through reality itself. At first, I thought it was a system failure. That kind of thing happens offshore all the time. Power dips, sensor errors, storm interference. But then I noticed something worse. Even the backup radio went quiet. Not broken, not distorted, just empty. And that's when I realized something that made my stomach drop. We were still connected to the ocean feed. It wasn't gone. It was waiting. I leaned closer to the main monitor, squinting at the frozen sonar map. The shapes we had been tracking earlier, the massive ones circling beneath the rig, were gone. Not moved. Gone. Like they had never been there at all. But I knew I wasn't imagining them, because my hands were still shaking from what I saw just minutes before the blackout. The water had been moving in patterns that didn't belong to currents. Too organized. Too intentional. Like something was learning the shape of our structure by circling it again and again. A sound cracked through the silence. Metal. Slow. Deep. Like something enormous dragging itself along the underside of the rig. Everyone in the control room turned at once. We didn't speak. We didn't need to. We all knew it wasn't normal. Another sound followed. Not impact. Not explosion. Bending. Like steel being folded by hands that didn't understand limits. One of the engineers whispered, "That's below us." His voice broke halfway through the sentence. I remember thinking that was impossible. Nothing should have been able to reach that deep structural level without setting off seismic alarms. But there were no alarms, because there was no system left to trigger them. Just silence. Then the radio crackled once. Every head snapped toward it. A burst of static. Sharp and violent, like the ocean was trying to cough something up through the frequency. And then, a voice, not clear at first, just fragments. "Don't look down." A pause. Then again, closer this time. "Don't look down." I felt my throat tighten, because I recognized that voice. It was mine, but I hadn't spoken. I turned slowly toward the radio console, like moving too fast might make reality notice me. The engineer beside me leaned in, pale. "That's not you," he said, but his eyes said he wasn't sure anymore. The speakers hissed again. This time, the voice continued, not repeating, not looping, speaking. It learned the shape of the rig. My blood went cold, because that wasn't just words. That was something I had thought earlier, alone, in my head. No one else had been in the room when I thought it. I stepped back from the console, instinctively. The lights overhead flickered once. And in that flicker, I saw something outside the reinforced glass. Just for a fraction of a second. A shadow under the waterline. Too big, too close, and moving like it understood gravity differently than anything alive should. The engineer grabbed my arm. "Did you see that?" But I couldn't answer, because the radio spoke again. And this time, it wasn't just my voice. It was layered, multiple voices, all familiar. Crew members, families, people we hadn't heard from in hours. Even someone crying in the background, faint and distant, like they were underwater. All saying the same thing. "Don't look down." The same sentence. Over and over. The control room started to panic. Someone tried to open the emergency channel, but the system wouldn't respond. Another engineer slammed the console. Nothing worked. We were disconnected from everything above water. Everything except the thing beneath us. And then, the metal beneath the rig groaned again. Longer this time. Like something massive had shifted its weight. The entire structure trembled. Not enough to collapse. Enough to remind us that collapse was possible. A voice came through the radio again. Softer now. Closer. More human. It's copying us now. That wasn't mine this time. I knew that voice. It was Daniel from engineering. But Daniel had gone missing earlier during a systems check near the lower deck. We thought he had fallen. We thought the ocean had taken him. But now he was speaking through the radio. Or something that remembered him was... I grabbed the microphone. I don't know why. Instinct, maybe. Fear makes you reach for control, even when there is none. "Daniel?" I said. Silence. Then a breath, right into the speaker. Not static. Breathing. Slow. Wet. like someone standing just behind a wall of water. Then Daniel's voice came back, but wrong, stretched, delayed. You should not be here. My grip tightened. Where are you? I asked. A pause. Then the answer came, not from the radio. From beneath us, a deep metallic scream. The rig shook hard enough this time that someone fell to the floor. The sound was an impact. It was metal tearing apart from the inside, like something had finally decided it didn't need permission anymore. The emergency lights kicked in, bathing everything in a red glow. Shadows stretched long across the control room. And for the first time, I noticed something terrifying. The shadows weren't matching us properly. Some were moving a second too late. Some weren't moving at all. I stepped closer to the window, against every instinct screaming in my chest. The ocean outside was black, too black, no reflection, no movement, like the surface had become a wall instead of water. And then I saw it, not clearly, not fully, but enough, a shape rising just under the surface, not swimming, not floating, ascending, like it had been underneath the rig the entire time, holding itself in place, waiting for us to notice it, a massive outline, stretching wider than the structure itself. And worse, it wasn't alone. Smaller shapes moved around it, circling slowly, almost gently, like they were learning, copying. The radio crackled again, but this time there was no voice, just breathing, and something else, knocking, soft, rhythmic, like someone inside a sealed metal space was trying to find a way out. One of the engineers whispered, "That's not coming from a radio." He was right. The sound wasn't in the speakers anymore. It was everywhere, inside the walls, inside the floor, inside us. Then the lights flickered again, and for 1 second, everything went completely dark. In that darkness, I heard it clearly, a voice right beside my ear, not from the radio, not from outside, from right there in the room. It said my name, perfectly, like it had been practicing. When the lights came back, no one moved. No one spoke. We all just stood there, listening to the silence like it might decide to become something again. And then the radio turned on one last time. No static, no distortion, just a calm, steady voice. Mine, but not me. "It knows now," it said softly. "It knows how you sound when you're afraid." The metal beneath the rig screamed again, this time louder, closer. And the last thing I remember before everything started to fail was a realization that whatever was under us wasn't trying to destroy the rig. It was trying to become it, and we were still inside. It came through like a normal 911 call, but the screen showed something impossible. No location data, no tower ping, just a blank space where a place should have been. And the voice on the other end was shaking so badly I could hear teeth chattering through the speaker. "Please, you have to send someone." I leaned closer to the console. "Sir, can you repeat your location?" A pause, then static. Not loud, not broken, almost careful, like something was listening between the noise. Then the voice came back. "Lower now, closer. We're in the streets, but they're not empty anymore." My hand froze over the keyboard, because something about the way he said streets didn't feel right, like he wasn't describing a place, like he was describing something alive. I checked the system again. Still no location, no registered town, no signal history, nothing, but the call was real, clean, active, and getting stronger. "Sir," I said slowly, "I need you to confirm your city." Silence, then a breath, long, shaky. "We don't know what it's called now." That line made my skin tighten, because in 911 work, people always know where they are, even in panic, even in pain. But don't know is different. It means something is wrong with memory or reality itself. I glanced at my partner across the room. She was already watching me, her expression tight. She mouthed, "Where is it coming from?" I didn't have an answer. The voice came back again. "This place, it used to have a name. I think." A long pause, then quieter. "But nobody says it anymore." That's when I checked the archive system. Old records, abandoned zones, ghost towns flagged after evacuation orders. And there it was, A single entry that made my stomach drop. No match found. Not even restricted. Not even deleted. Just erased. Like it never existed at all. But the call was still live. Still breathing. Still waiting. Sir, I said again, try and keep my voice steady. What is your emergency? This time, the response didn't come immediately. Instead, I heard something in the background. Footsteps. Slow. Wet. Dragging slightly across pavement. Then another sound layered underneath. Whispers. Too many voices to count. Not speaking words. Just repeating tones. Like they were learning how language worked. The man on the call whispered. They're walking again. My grip tightened. Who is walking? I asked. A long silence followed. Then, they are, the ones in the streets. The words hit wrong. Not because of fear. Because of certainty. Like he wasn't guessing. Like he was watching. My partner leaned in closer now, whispering, "This is not routing properly. It shouldn't even be connected." I knew that. The system was showing nothing. No cell towers. No satellite link. No VoIP trace. It was like the call was coming from inside the network itself. Or underneath it. The man suddenly spoke louder. "They're stopping when I talk." I frowned. "What do you mean?" His voice cracked. "I mean, when I speak, they stop moving." A pause. Then, softer. "And when I stop, they start again." A chill crawled up my spine. Because that wasn't fear talking. That was observation. Careful. Repeated. Tested. Like he had been studying them. My partner reached for the termination switch. But I stopped her. Something about this didn't feel like a call we could just hang up on. Not anymore. "Sir," I said, slower now. "How many of them are there?" Another pause. Then the worst answer possible. "I can't count them while they're looking at me." My throat tightened. "Are they looking at you right now?" Silence. Then barely audible. "Yes." A sharp static burst cut through the line. For half a second, I thought we'd lost him. But then his voice returned, changed. Not panicked anymore. Flat. Controlled. "They don't blink," he said. I leaned closer. "They don't need to." Something about the way he said it made my chest feel tight. Like he was no longer describing danger. He was describing understanding it. I looked at the system again. Still nothing. No origin. But now I noticed something else. The call duration counter. It was wrong. It showed midnight. Even though we had been talking for several minutes. Like time itself wasn't recording this conversation. My partner whispered, "This isn't a live call." I didn't answer. Because I wasn't sure anymore. The man spoke again. And this time, his voice had something new in it. Recognition. "I think you're the first ones I've reached that aren't here." My fingers went cold. "What do you mean?" I asked. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, I heard movement. Slow steps again. Closer now. Much closer. Then his voice came back, softer. "They're copying everything I do." A pause. Then, "I think they're trying to figure out what I am." My partner stepped back slightly. "End this," she whispered. But I couldn't, because something about his tone had shifted the room. Like the air itself was leaning in. The man suddenly spoke faster. They used to stay still when we ignored them. A breath. But now, they move even when we don't look. Another pause. Longer this time. Then, and they started answering back. That line changed everything. Because until now, it had been one voice. One caller. One place that shouldn't exist. But now it was becoming something else. A conversation. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. The speaker hissed softly. Then, faintly, a second voice slipped through. Not the man's. Not mine. But something imitating both. "They are learning you." My hand froze. My partner whispered, "Did you hear that?" I nodded slowly. Because I had. And I didn't want to admit what it sounded like. A copy. Not of a voice. But of the idea of speaking. The man suddenly shouted into the line. "Don't let them listen when you stop talking." The call spiked with static. My monitor flickered. And for one brief second, the entire system showed a location. Not a city. Not coordinates. Just a word. One that shouldn't exist. Then it vanished again. The man's voice dropped to a whisper. They're closer when it's quiet. I swallowed hard. Sir, where are you right now? A long pause. Then the answer came. Soft, certain, still on the call. And that's when I realized something that made my stomach twist. He wasn't trying to reach us. He was trying to stay connected. Because whatever was there with him didn't exist when the line went silent. And the only thing keeping him alive was us listening. We should have seen darkness. That was the first thing that felt wrong. Because the moment our vehicle crossed the boundary line on the map, every satellite image had shown blackout. No power grid, no infrastructure, no reason for light. But there it was, street lights, perfect rows stretching into the abandoned town like nothing had ever gone wrong here. My radio crackled as we slowed the truck. Confirmed visual, I said. Static, then my partner's voice from the front seat. I see them. She sounded uneasy, not scared yet, just confused. That was worse. Because confusion is what comes right before fear realizes it has a reason. We rolled closer. The tires made almost no sound on the road. Too clean, too intact, like no one had driven here in years. But also like someone had been taking care of it. The streetlights didn't flicker. They didn't hum. They just existed. Steady, bright, perfect white light spilling over empty sidewalks. No broken glass. No trash. No signs of evacuation. Just a town waiting. But for what? I checked my tablet again. Still showing abandoned status. Still showing do not enter. Unverified evacuation zone. I looked up at the street ahead and realized something that made my chest tighten. There were tire marks on the road. Fresh ones. Our convoy wasn't the first. My partner noticed too. She slowed the truck even more. Who the hell is maintaining this place? She asked. I didn't answer, because I was watching something else now. A traffic light at the intersection ahead. It changed. Green, then red, then green again. No cars, no wind, no reason, just movement, like it was responding to something we couldn't see. We stopped at the edge of the main street. Silence poured into the cracked window. Not the normal kind. This silence felt structured, like the absence of sound was arranged carefully. My partner reached for binoculars. She scanned the street slowly. It's empty, she said, but her voice didn't believe it. I took the binoculars next. Zoomed in. The street stretched ahead like a perfectly preserved memory. Storefronts intact. Signs still hanging. Even paper flyers stuck to walls like they had been glued yesterday. But there were no people. Not a single movement. And yet, something about the place felt occupied, like we were the ones intruding. Then I saw it. A curtain inside a second-floor window. It moved, just slightly. My breath caught. I zoomed in tighter. The curtain was still. No wind. No air movement. But I swear I had seen it shift. My partner leaned closer. You see that? I nodded. She lowered the binoculars. We're not alone. I didn't like the way she said it, because she didn't mean survivors. She meant something else. We decided to proceed on foot. The truck stayed running behind us, engine idling like a nervous heartbeat. Every step onto that street felt wrong. Not dangerous. Wrong. Like the ground itself was pretending to be familiar. The streetlights above us didn't change. Didn't react. They just watched. We passed the first intersection. That's when I noticed something that made my skin crawl. Every shadow on the ground was slightly delayed. Mine moved first. Then the light followed. Not the other way around. I stopped walking. My partner turned. What? Look at the shadows, I said. She frowned. Then she saw it too. Her shadow lagged behind her movement by half a second. She lifted her hand slowly. The shadow followed late, like something was copying her instead of tracking her. She whispered, "That's not possible." No, it wasn't. We continued forward, slower now. Every building we passed looked normal. Too normal, like someone had rebuilt an abandoned town using memory instead of reality. Then the first radio crackle came, not from our channel, from the town itself. A public speaker mounted on a pole ahead. It hissed once. Then a voice came through. Clear, calm, Mayo, Welcome back. My partner froze. I looked up at the speaker. No damage. No rust. Fresh metal. Like it had been installed yesterday. The voice continued. We didn't expect visitors tonight. I reached for my radio. Dead silence. No transmission out. Only this town could speak now. Not us. The voice on the speaker paused, then added softly, "But you arrived anyway." My partner whispered, "Who is that?" I didn't know, but something in my stomach already did. We moved toward the speaker. Every step felt heavier, like the street was adding weight to our bodies. As we got closer, I noticed something worse. The streetlights ahead were slightly brighter. Not all of them, just the ones further down the road. Like something was concentrating attention there. The speaker crackled again. This place is functioning exactly as intended. My partner snapped, "Nothing here is functioning normally." The voice didn't react. Instead it said, "You are incorrect." A pause. Then, "It is functioning exactly as it remembers." That sentence hit me wrong. Because memory doesn't power a town. Machines do. Systems do. But memory? We reached the center of the street. A small square. Empty fountain in the middle. Water flowing. Of course it was flowing. Of course. I felt my partner tense beside me. "There's no water line out here," she said quietly. But the fountain kept running. Perfect streams of water falling into itself. No source. No tank. Just motion pretending to be infrastructure. The speaker voice returned. "Please remain where you are." I looked around. "Or what?" I said out loud. The town didn't answer immediately. Instead, every streetlight around us flickered once, in perfect synchronization. Then the voice said, "You will confuse us if you move." My partner turned to me slowly. "Confuse who?" I didn't answer, because I saw something at the far end of the street. A figure, standing still, watching. It was too far to make out clearly, but it looked human. Almost. Except it wasn't moving like a human should. It wasn't shifting weight. It wasn't breathing visibly. It was paused, like it was waiting for instructions. The speaker crackled again. "That is one of ours." My partner raised her weapon instinctively. "Identify yourself," she shouted. The figure didn't react, but the voice did. "Do not raise your tone," it said calmly. A pause. Then, "It will learn it." My blood went cold. "Learn it." I whispered. The speaker answered immediately. "Yes." Another pause. Then something that made my stomach twist deeper. "We are still adjusting." The figure at the end of the street tilted its head slightly. Not like curiosity, like calibration. My partner stepped back. "We need to leave," she said. But when she turned, the street behind us was different. The truck wasn't where we left it. The road didn't continue the same way. It had rearranged itself. Subtly, but enough to notice. Like the town was rewriting its own layout. While we weren't looking, the speaker voice softened. "You are not in danger." A pause. "You are in process." I felt my throat tighten. Process of what? I asked. Silence. Then, becoming understandable. The streetlights dimmed slightly. Just slightly. And in that dimming, I realized something horrifying. The figure at the end of the street had multiplied. Not physically, but visually. There were now 3, then 5, then more, all standing in slightly different positions. None of them arriving, all of them already there. My partner grabbed my arm. "Tell me you see that," she whispered. I didn't answer, because I couldn't tell what was real anymore. The speaker gave one final message. "You may continue exploring." A pause. "But please avoid stopping." My partner whispered, "Why?" The voice answered instantly. "Because when you stop moving, we finish building you." And the streetlights all turned red at once. The dust wasn't supposed to be disturbed. That was the first thing I noticed when we stepped into the first house. Fresh footprints, barely visible at first, like someone had tried not to leave a trace. But they were there, leading straight from the front door, deeper inside. My flashlight beam shook slightly as I followed them. The air inside was warm, too warm, like the house had been breathing without us. My partner whispered behind me. This place is supposed to be abandoned. I didn't answer, because I was staring at something on the kitchen table. A bowl of food, steam still rising. Not cold, not stale, fresh, like someone had just left the room seconds ago. But there were no sounds, no footsteps, no doors closing, just silence that felt carefully arranged. I moved closer to the table. The food wasn't rotting, wasn't even touched. It looked like it was waiting. My partner checked the hallway. "Clear," she said, but her voice didn't sound relieved. It sounded cautious, like she didn't trust what clear meant here. I pointed my flashlight at the footprints again. They continued past the kitchen, down the hallway, straight into the back rooms, then stopped right in front of a closed door. A bedroom. The door was slightly open, just a crack, enough to suggest it was never fully closed in the first place. I felt something tighten in my chest, because the footprints didn't go inside. They stopped at the door, like whoever made them had hesitated, or been stopped. My partner stepped closer. "You hear that?" she asked. I froze. At first, I thought it was nothing. Then I heard it, a soft shifting sound, inside the walls. Not loud, not sharp, more like fabric moving slowly against wood, like someone turning in a bed very carefully. I raised my hand slightly, signaling her to stay back. We approached the door together, slow, measured. Every step felt too loud, even though we weren't making any sound at all. The air around the door felt different, denser, heavier, like the room behind it was holding something in place. I pushed the door open. It creaked, but not like an old house, like something acknowledging us. The bedroom was empty, at least at first glance. Bed neatly made, curtains still, no dust in the air, no decay, just order, too much order. Then my flashlight hit the floor, and I saw more footprints. These ones were different. They weren't leaving. They were circling around the bed, slow, repeating paths, like someone had been pacing there for a long time. My partner whispered, "This doesn't make sense." But I didn't respond, because I noticed something else. The footprints were fresh, but the room wasn't, which meant something was still making them. Right now, we both turned at the same time, listening. The sound came again, a shift inside the wall behind the bed. I stepped closer, placed my hand against it. Warm, not from heating, from something else, from something inside. My partner stepped back slightly. "I don't like this," she said. Her voice was tighter now, less controlled, more human. I pressed my ear against the wall. At first, nothing. Then, a breath. Not loud, not dramatic. Just there, slow, deliberate, like something was trying not to be noticed. Then another sound, a soft dragging, like nails or fingers moving across wood. I pulled back immediately. My heart was beating too hard now. "Something's in the walls," I said quietly. My partner shook her head. "That's not possible." But neither of us moved away, because the footprints in the room were still forming, right in front of us. New ones appearing slowly, one by one, as if the room itself was deciding where to step. I raised my flashlight again. The footprints now moved toward the closet. We both stared at it, closed, still, but not normal, because I realized something that made my stomach drop. The closet door wasn't just closed. It was sealed with dust, like nothing had opened it in years. So why were the footprints leading there? My partner whispered, "No one's coming out of there." I didn't answer, because I wasn't sure anymore if that mattered. The closet door shifted, just slightly, not opening, not closing, just acknowledging pressure from the other side. My grip tightened around the flashlight. The air in the room changed again, warmer, closer, like the room was shrinking around us. Then a sound came from inside the closet, not knocking, not scratching. A voice, soft, almost familiar. It said my name, perfectly. I froze. My partner turned to me instantly. "Did you hear that?" I didn't respond, because the voice spoke again. And this time, it wasn't just my name. It was my voice, repeating something I had said earlier today. Something private, Something I hadn't spoken out loud in this room. I stepped back slowly. No, I whispered, but the closet answered anyway. Yes. The door handle moved. Slowly, not turning fully, just testing, like something was learning resistance. My partner raised her weapon. Open it, she said, but I stopped her because I saw something that changed everything. The footprints in the room had stopped. All of them, right in place. Like whatever was making them had stopped moving. Not gone, just waiting. Then the closet spoke again. This time not my voice. Not human, just layered sound. Too many tones at once. You already opened it. My breath caught. My partner stepped forward. We did not. But she stopped because she saw it too. The closet door was already slightly open. Just a crack. Exactly like the bedroom door had been when we entered, except we were certain it had been closed. I felt my pulse spike. Something about the room didn't feel like it was continuing. It felt like it was repeating. My partner whispered, "We've been here before." I wanted to argue, but I couldn't because I had the same feeling. That strange, sixth sense of deja vu that doesn't feel like memory. It feels like correction. The closet creaked again, and from inside, something pressed against the door. Slow, deliberate, not forcing it open, just reminding it could. The voice came again. Calm now, patient. We are almost done copying this room. My partner stepped back immediately. Copying. The voice answered instantly. Yes. A pause. Then you walked into an unfinished version. My skin went cold. The closet door shifted wider. And inside, I saw movement. Not a person. Not clearly. Just shapes forming and unforming too quickly for the eye to settle on. Like the idea of a human being assembled wrong. My partner whispered, "We need to leave." But when we turned toward the door, it wasn't where it was supposed to be. The hallway behind us had changed. The footprints we followed earlier now led back into the room. Not out of it. Back in, completing a loop. My breathing tightened. The voice in the closet spoke one last time. You will stay until the room matches you completely. And then the lights flickered once. And every footprint in the room took one step forward at the exact same time. The first sound was the phone ringing. It was my own voice, saying my name. Slow, calm, too calm. I froze at the dispatch desk, staring at the glowing screen. The call log showed a single incoming line. Abandoned town, Sector 12. My fingers didn't move. My breathing got stuck somewhere behind my ribs. Then the voice came again through the headset. Not recorded, not distorted. Alive. Dispatcher hail, please respond. I pulled the headset away, like it burned my skin, but the voice didn't stop. It followed me into the room, like it had already been there before I picked up. The other operators weren't reacting. They were busy. Phones ringing, radios crackling, normal chaos. Only I could hear it. Only me. That was the first thing that felt wrong. Because I knew that voice. It was mine. 3 weeks ago, I had done a training drill in that exact voice tone. Calm emergency cadence. Controlled breathing. I had practiced it so many times that I could hear it in my sleep. But I had never said those words. Not these ones. Dispatcher hail. I'm still in Sector 12. My throat went dry. Sector 12 was the abandoned town. The one that wasn't supposed to have active lines. The one we stopped sending teams to after the missing unit report. I checked the screen again. No caller ID. Just a town name blinking softly, like it was waiting for me to accept it. My finger hovered over the disconnect button. Then the voice whispered something that made my stomach drop. I can hear you breathing. I didn't press anything. I couldn't.